Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Hello. Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
There's 2 meetings going on.
Oh, good. So this is the real one.
Yeah, I know. I messaged
Someone else must have started one, yeah.
Okay. Because one I got from an email from a few days ago that was in, and then I opened this one, which is the one you sent like 3 minutes ago, and I was on 2 different meetings at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'd mention that.
Thank you. Yeah, the official one's going to be is this one here.
Okay.
So if anybody's in the other one, tell people to leave. I can actually just request them to join. There we go. It's even easier. I'll just call them. Awesome. Yeah, just to let you know, I'll be recording every class, just like we did last semester, so no differences there. Kind of give everybody a second to come in, get all set up. I think everybody's here now. Awesome. Okay. So welcome back. I can't hear anything. I'm going to try and rejoin. Okay. Jeanette, you can't hear anything? Everybody can still hear me, right? Like, it's not a...
Yeah, I can.
I can hear you, Chris.
Am I loud enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. There's a bit of a lag.
There's a bit of a lag? Yeah, there will be, unfortunately. So welcome back, everybody. And happy 2022, happy New Year. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday. And you're well rested and ready for the second half of your course. It's this part's a little short. It's only 10 weeks. 10 weeks of classroom stuff anyway. So we have lots to cover in 10 weeks. This class is 4 hours every week. So that is 12:30 to 4:30 or 4:20 every single week. How I'm probably going to structure that is we got about 2 hours worth of lesson content to get through and 2 hours of my time available to you where I can act as creative director / professor so I can help you with questions and all that kind of stuff, as well as kind of give you feedback to make your projects better, as well as, just give you lab time in order to get stuff done. I know lab time right now is virtual. Emily did mention that there is space in order for you guys to get into a classroom. I am going to be reviewing Splashtop today as well. So if you are trying to access this stuff from home or your own personal laptops, you'll have access at least to Splashtop in order to get access to all the sweet Adobe goodness. So you don't have to go out and buy it yourself. Now, with that said, the first few weeks is definitely going to be virtual as kind of we navigate this wonderful new strain and try to figure out what that's all going to look like. So the college has announced that everything's at least going to be virtual for 3 weeks. And then, if not until at least February 25th. So we're going to kind of see how it goes. We're going to play it by ear, see what everything's doing. And we can always choose to see if we can get in to the classroom in a few weeks, depending on how everything's going. Right. So we might be able to get permission at that point in order for us to get in person. But right now I do not have permission to even be on campus. So can't do it. So it's going to be virtual. And we'll just make the best of it. This entire course was actually delivered virtually last year, so the students never got to see me in person. So you guys got, the benefit of last semester being partially in person. So hopefully this one will be partially in person as well. So we'll kind of see what's going on. But of course, we want to keep everybody safe. That's really important, right? So yeah, the in-person stuff's fun for sure. So yeah. Awesome. So what we're going to be doing is, let's see if this is going to, my computer's going to respond here. There we go. So today's class, we actually have some content to get through. We only have 10 weeks, so we really don't have the ability to just say like, first week, it's fine. Everybody go ahead. So really what we're going to need to do is we are going to have to go through some content today. We're going to be talking about Photoshop. So if you've never seen Photoshop before, I'm going to do a really quick crash tutorial on Photoshop. As well as some really, if you've used Photoshop before, you're going to learn some new cool stuff that you might not have learned before. So some neat tools and stuff that might be pretty cool. It's usually pretty neat. And then we're going to go through, like, the other big part of this is really getting more into the technical, right? We're going to talk about video. We're going to be doing all that kind of fun stuff. And we're going to be really kind of trying to deep dive more into Premiere Pro. In the next couple of weeks, you're going to start to learn InDesign. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you for that. So, but without further ado, I will share my screen. And we can actually start going through the content and for this course, so we can talk about the TLP. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. Oh, come on. Hold on a second. I always forget that it always does this. That's fine. There we go. Let's full screen it this way. That's better. And then it won't jump me all around. Okay, assuming everybody can see my screen. So this is the Blackboard, of course, that you guys understand. I'll just kind of really quickly go through this. I know this is the second semester with me, but this is really the setup the exact same way as it was last semester, right? So your course outline here, that's going to detail all of the main kind of deliverables for the course. Teaching and learning plan. We're going to deep dive into that in just a second. And then a bunch of other, links that are important for students. Course documents, though, is really where we're going to live every week. So as you can see, kind of a sneak peek of what things going to look like as we go through the weeks. But this week 1 is intro, and I've already put some content up here for, what files to download for this week and some kind of notes from the class that you'll have to be able to keep, as well as kind of what we're doing with Photoshop later on, right, with some further reading and stuff. So I'm going to try to provide some further reading. So if there's a content that we talk about in class that you want to deep dive a little bit more, definitely give yourself a good 30 minutes to an hour to go ahead and do that every week. Kind of take a look at those extra videos and that extra content that can definitely be very beneficial. Okay. Assignments, we'll have, I'll go through that in the TLP in just a moment. Here's another shortcut to the teaching and learning plan. And of course, I put a link here for virtual classroom. I just added it, but this will link directly to Teams. Make sure you do log into Teams first. That's really important. If you don't log into Teams first, you won't be able to do things like comment potentially or share your screen or do anything like that. So definitely be logging into Teams every week instead of just coming in as a guest. Okay. Awesome. Let's take a look at the TLP. So the TLP, this is very similar to what it looked like last year. You just have 2 columns. So this course is designed, it's a 4-hour course. So there's basically, 2 topics that we try to get through every week, 2 1-hour classes that we try to get through every week. And then we have the 2 hours of lab time as we we'll spread some stuff around. Okay. So, but this week, as I said, we're going to be talking about Photoshop basics and overview of video assignments and how to use a phone as a video camera, that kind of stuff. And then this week, actually, one of your first assignments will be dropping. So your first assignment will be dropping, worth 10% of your grade, which is your first video assignment. And we'll get into that a little bit. Next week, we'll start InDesign, and we'll continue a lot with InDesign. We're going to do some extra stuff as well. Like we're going to be talking a little bit about Adobe Illustrator as we kind of explore more stuff, down in here in the logo design challenge that we'll have in week 5. So we'll actually be challenging everybody to kind of come up with a cool logo. And we'll be doing that kind of in class, and I'll be helping you with that. We're going to be talking about some Google stuff and how to rank higher in Google. So that's kind of really exciting. And Google AdWords and all kinds of fun stuff as we kind of go through the course and different things we can do. So awesome. And then we kind of finish everything off with our 2 big video assignments. So video assignment 2 will actually be just like we did last semester. Our second video assignment will be doing the critiques in class, and then we'll also be presenting in our final week, presenting our big InDesign assignment. So there's 5 things for your grade this semester. That's it. So there's a lot less assignments, but they're bigger. Okay, so you have basically 2 video assignments and 3 InDesign assignments. Okay, or design assignments, primarily using the program InDesign. So that's really kind of the weight of everything is on those 2 applications from Adobe. Of course, InDesign, though, as we get to learn InDesign, its strength is that it actually pulls in assets from all the Adobe applications. So you're going to be, potentially doing a little bit of work in Photoshop, potentially doing a little bit of work in Illustrator, and then bringing those assets directly into InDesign for your final composition and layout. Okay, for those assignments. So pretty exciting. Late submission of assignment policy. We're definitely going to be more strict with this one this semester. You have to talk to me before it's due, and it's a maximum 2 days or it's a 0. You have to make sure things are uploaded properly. So after you upload it to Blackboard, make sure you can re-download it, and just make sure you're checking your email in case when I go to mark it if something's happening or something, so that I can't mark it properly. Okay. Required technology to be successful. We're going to go over Splashtop in just a minute. I'll install Splashtop and walk you through exactly how to set that up. So if that's important for you. Essentially, though, you're going to need access to Photoshop, InDesign, and Premiere Pro. Those 3 Adobe applications, that's really the big pieces. You'll also need access to Illustrator, but it's all part of the same package anyway. You can do what you need to do in Illustrator in InDesign, but I will be showing you guys Illustrator a little bit. And other than that, it's pretty much all, high-speed internet connection. Emily did say that you guys could use the college. So I don't know if anybody today is connecting from the college, but that is something you potentially can do. At least that's what I've heard. So, is anybody connecting from the college today? I'll take it as a no. Okay. Awesome. So let's jump into Splashtop. So if you go to, I've actually added this link right here under the bonus, but if you go to its.niagaracollege.ca, that's our ITS department, they actually have a Splashtop student access area with all of the instructions. So it talks a little bit about Apps Anywhere. Apps Anywhere is like another way to access applications through the college. It does not work for the Adobe application. So if you need to use the Adobe suite, you have to go through Splashtop. The challenge with Splashtop last semester is they didn't give us access to graphic design computers. So that was fantastic. So there was no access to any Macs. So you couldn't actually access the Adobe application. So they gave us Splashtop, but they didn't give us access to the right computer. So that's been rectified. As far as I know, that's been fixed. So we can go ahead and talk about that. So all we got to do, though, anyways, is make sure you're downloading the Splashtop business app at splashtop.com/download. So we'll go ahead and do that now. There's business access. And I'm on the Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and download the Mac version. Very good. And we'll open that file up. Once we're back in person too, I did promise you guys I would do a little bit of a Mac tutorial on how to do certain things on the Mac. We'll wait until we're back in person to take that time, unless somebody just bought a Mac for themselves and they're itching to figure it out. But we're just going to set this up. If you're on Windows, it's the same thing. Just go ahead and set it up. Oops, come on. There we go. Okay, so let's jump back over here. So there actually is a Splashtop guide right here where they'll actually give you a PDF of how to go ahead and log in. But you're basically going to use your username at ncstudents.niagaracollege.ca and your password, right? So that's the big one here. Let's go see if I can log in. I should be able to log in. I could log in last semester, so we'll see what happens this semester. Let's also see if I remember my password. I haven't been on campus in 3 weeks, so why wouldn't I forget my password? Okay. Yeah. There we go. Okay, here we go. So this, there we go. We have Mac workstations. So that's perfect. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get past this general use workstations. These are just the Windows computers. You can see it's got the little Windows icon. Looks like a window. That's the Windows icon. Those are Windows computers. These do not have Adobe, so don't even go ahead and use those. They're not going to work. You can actually just collapse this whole section by clicking the little down caret here. And these are what you're going to want. S332 and S334 Mac workstations. And there's a ton of them. What you're going to basically want to do is click around, make sure like they might not work. Some of them might not work, but you want to kind of click around and try a couple of ones until they do work. And they're going to take a few minutes. So you just double click one. It's going to take a few minutes to connect. Your session will be over in 674 minutes. It's going to automatically. There we go. So we can go ahead and we can log in. It says your screen is being observed because it is live in the classroom. So someone else could be in that classroom and they would see what you're doing, okay, if they're in the room. But I mean, realistically, is that my password? I don't even know. See what happens. But realistically, like, nobody's there right now, right? But just keep that in mind. Bum, bum, bum. So one of the downsides to using Premiere Pro through Splashtop is the fact that sound isn't going to work. Or some people might have that problem where sound doesn't work. They never did fix it. So the sound editing part of your video is going to be the difficult part, unfortunately. It might just be, you know, some creativity of you know, exporting a video and trying it out and doing that kind of stuff. Or trying another Adobe trial, unfortunately. Now, you do have access to the labs, so that wouldn't be a problem. Grab some headphones and go into actually to the college. And you'll be able to do it that way. But that's just unfortunately a downside. It's something we had a limitation for last year, and it complicates things. But unfortunately, there's nothing really we can do. It's just a technical limitation. So we're gonna let this sit, and there it goes. Okay, just as I said that. So this is through the internet. So if you don't have, you know, fantastic internet, you could have a lot of problems here with it just loading really slow. Even here, so I'm saying this is a poor network connection. I think I'm doing too much for my internet right now. I'm streaming a classroom, trying to go through Splashtop. My kid's in the other room. He's in virtual school, so I mean, probably too much. Somebody's watching Netflix. There's probably too much going on right now for my internet too at home. But with that said, this is what it would look like, and it's just like the Macs, you know, in class. So if you used any of the Macs in class last semester, you're gonna be at home, you're gonna understand what to do. If not, that's fine too. Just go ahead and you're gonna want to click the launch pad. It's probably the easiest way to get to anything. Everything's still loading. Let's just give it a second. Come on, computer, you can do it. I believe in you. Look at that. It's already asking me to log in here, so I'm gonna log in. Just put your college email address in here. This is for Adobe. Should sign you in automatically. Come on. Yay. There we go. It's going to automatically open Creative Cloud for us. Even easier. If it doesn't do this, you can go ahead and click the little launch pad in the bottom here, and you can go ahead and all of your applications are in here, right? So all your Adobe applications, everything, are kind of on these tabs, right?
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Just double checking. When we're logging in, it's our student email and then our student number as the password.
Your student, whatever your student email password is, correct? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's all the same. Yeah.
Okay.
So your email password combination should be the same for everything you log in. So Blackboard, Outlook, everything Teams should always be the same.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So and what you're doing here is there's Illustrator, there's Photoshop, there's everything. There's Premiere Pro, it's all that kind of stuff. Of course, when we're doing InDesign, the sound part doesn't matter, so it's not a big deal, or when we're using Photoshop or something. But yeah, you just click the app, it should open. As I said, give us some time, have some patience. Yeah.
Did you say that the little icon should show up with the apple? Because I have none showing with the apple.
With the apple, I don't know.
There's some with S's, but I don't see anything with an apple on it.
An apple on it. These ones? What? Keeps popping up. There we go. These ones don't show up for you?
No. Yeah, I don't have any Apple ones either. I only have PC ones.
I have none.
You guys scroll way
Windows.
Down. Yeah, if you scroll way down.
Yeah, all the way went to the bottom.
Okay.
Yep. Did it.
And it didn't work. You don't have any of these. S332 and S334, you don't have them.
No.
That's what you're saying? Okay, no problem. I will make a note and contact Emily to have that fixed. So that should have been fixed. I was told it was fixed like a week ago. So Emily reached out to her boss and he said it was fixed.
Yeah.
So
all we have is NC
the
general
challenge.
use workstations.
Okay. Yeah, those will not work whatsoever for this.
No.
Yeah, I went on it too, and it brought me like up somebody else had like logged into the computer. It had like someone's name on it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oops.
Just pick a different one. That's okay. If that does happen, just pick a different one. Unfortunately, because it is other students are logging into these computers too. So, yeah. So I will, as I said, I'll contact Emily. I will shoot her a message right now, actually. So before I even forget. Does anyone have access to them? S332 and S334 max. Should be the same for them. Cool, done. So hopefully we can get that fixed right away. Awesome. Okay, so anyway, we're not going to go through Photoshop in this section. I won't stream through Splashtop to stream Photoshop. Doesn't make any sense. But this is kind of like the experience that you could look forward to. You can full screen this too. If you're on the Mac, you can full screen it. If not, if you're on Windows, you can just make it big. That's fine too. But this is as close to the best you can get using that. So the best way to transfer files between computer and your stuff is using Microsoft OneDrive. So we talked about that last semester a little bit. So if you do want to get files to Splashtop and back, probably one of the best ways to do it is to actually use Microsoft OneDrive. I don't believe there might be a file transfer option. Sometimes they have that. It's going to go through the internet. It's going to be pretty slow. There it is, file transfer. So you could try using this, or you can actually, I'll have to grant access and stuff because I'm on the Mac. But the idea is you'll be able to transfer files back and forth. You could try it, see how it works. It might work okay, but if not, then you can just go ahead and save everything to your OneDrive, and it should be much better. So, but anyway, yeah, that's that little icon right at the top here called File Transfer. But if you already got a workflow, if you already got your student files in your OneDrive for the college, that's going to be the best place for you to be transferring files back and forth between your personal computer and your Splashtop instance, okay? You're going to want to make sure you're saving it, because if you just save it to this personal computer, it's not necessarily going to be anywhere you'd be able to access it again. So if you're working on a file, make sure you either file transfer it back to yourself or that you actually go ahead and save it to OneDrive, okay? Awesome. And OneDrive should always be logged in. Where is it? I never use it. There, OneDrive right there. So you might have to log in each time. I think we talked about that last semester. I don't know if they fixed that. Just taking its sweet time here. Yeah, so you do have to sign in each time, but that will give you access to your Microsoft OneDrive, which you can go ahead and log into. It's just like Teams, just like Outlook. You can literally go to onedrive.microsoft.com and have full access. Once you log in with your student email and password, you'll have full access. It's all the same suite of Microsoft products, so you're all going to have the exact same kind of login experience. So wicked. And once you're done, just make sure you go ahead and disconnect. Very important, right? Actually, I'm going to reconnect because I think you have to log out first. Let's try that one more time. Make sure it logged me out. Yeah, so it didn't actually log me out. It left me in this state. So what you actually want to do, so let's do that again. So let's re-log in again. Is that my password? No. I did not type that in right. Third time's a charm, right? Hey, there we go. Okay, so you're going to want to go out and log out first. So just like you're at the college, just go ahead and make sure you click that log out button first. You don't have to, you can check this on or off. It really doesn't matter. And that'll log you out completely from this computer, and it'll actually give access to somebody else when they go ahead and need it. So you want to do that first before you go ahead and click this little X button. Okay. Now I know you guys don't have access yet, but hopefully very shortly that will change. Look, Emily already get back to me. Awesome. She's on it right away. She's going to see if she can get it fixed. Awesome. So hopefully very soon. The link to Splashtop and everything we just did is right here under week 1. It's under the little bonus section for Splashtop. So that should do what we need to do. Awesome. Just going to make sure Photoshop's good. Photoshop's good on my computer. Fantastic. All right. Any questions about any of that?
We don't have to be using Splashtop. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Pam.
That's okay. I'm just wondering if, Chris, if you or anybody else knows, I was thinking about just getting like the Adobe package while I'm in class, but everything I can find about it says that it's on a year-long contract, and if you cancel before the year, you have to pay a certain part of it. Does anybody know about that?
You do have to. You can do it month to month. You're just not going to get the same deal by doing month to month. So when you go to adobe.com and you go to students and teachers, buy now, click, schools, students and teachers here, it's going to give you this $25.99 a month. If you annual plan paid monthly, you're going to want to go. There is no way anymore to do it monthly.
I haven't been able to find
for the whole year. So $311 is for the whole year. Unless you do an individuals, it's like $70 a month.
Can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I can.
I just sent the link to the chat.
What is it? What's the link?
Hopefully that's student and teacher discount for monthly. That's the one I use.
And you just pay month to month?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Look at that. Build
awesome.
monthly.
Thank you.
2%. Yeah, and you'll be able to just cancel because you're paying monthly. You'll be able to cancel at any time.
Perfect.
You cancel after. What's this say? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Very good. Thanks, Cole. Okay, so what's next? You're like, why are you asking that? Hold on a second. Let's jump into the next topic. All right, let's talk about Photoshop a little bit. So what I wanted to do before we actually started talking about Photoshop is we need to talk about, let's go ahead and download these Photoshop Student Start files. And this is a handy little resource. We'll just kind of open this up for just a second. Where did it? There we go. So go ahead and grab those files. Just download the files. There we go. Very good. And we'll be using those in just a minute when we go ahead and deep dive into Photoshop. Some images that we can go ahead and use and play around with. I can close all this now. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So before we actually get into Photoshop, though, I do want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about kind of raster versus vector. It's something that's really interesting and something that we have to understand. So when we're going to be using this semester, we're going to be using, as I said, besides or aside from, I should say, Premiere Pro, we're going to be talking about InDesign and we're Photoshop and Illustrator. So Photoshop is known as a bitmap or a raster application. So you're actually working with pixels when you work with Photoshop. So what that means is if you have an image, so you take an image with your camera and the camera's listed as, let's say, 3 megapixels or 12 megapixels or whatever that is, that's the resolution. That's the pixel resolution that the camera is shooting in. If you're filming, for example, in 1080p, 1080p is the same thing as saying 1920 by 1080, right? And that means 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels tall. This is a pixel representation. That's what 1080p stands for, is simply just the 1080, which is the height, right? But realistically, it means there's 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels tall. It's how televisions work. It's how monitors work. It's how your screen on your phone works. They're all in pixels. Photoshop is a pixel-based application. Pixels mean that they're either there or they're not, right? So if you have 1920 pixels wide, those are literally 1920 pixels, little dots that go all the way across and all the way down and fill an entire square or rectangle. And they're either red, green, or blue, or any combination of red, green, or blue. And that's what makes up RGB. We talked about RGB last semester a little bit. That's what makes up, what you see on the screen, all that kind of stuff. So if you put an image that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels on your screen and you blow it up and zoom in, it looks pixelated because those pixels don't exist, right? We get pixelization. So Photoshop is designed to work at a pixel resolution. So it's designed to work with pixels. It's raster because what happens is, or it's also known as bitmap, is literally made up of pixels, right? And it works with pixels. Now, that's fantastic because if you're using photos, any photorealistic artwork, anything like that, Photoshop is definitely called photo. Photoshop is definitely what you want to use because, again, it's designed from the ground up to work with pixels. There's drawing tools and all that kind of stuff inside of it, but all those drawing tools, the pen tool, type tool, all that, when you go ahead and save that file out, it's saving it in pixels, right? It's saving it as a raster, as a rasterized image. That's technically the term. It's best used, again, for photorealistic work. The difference between that and something like Adobe Illustrator is that Illustrator is a vector-based application. Vectors are mathematically created shapes. Okay, so realistically, a vector is a whole bunch of instructions to the computer to go ahead and draw something, right? So if you have a box in your vector, it's going to draw that box. It doesn't care what pixel it is. You can zoom in as much as you want or zoom out as much as you want. It'll always look perfect because it's simply being calculated using math. It's got an X, Y coordinate. It's got width and height. It might have a circumference if it's a circle, but it has all of these parameters to know where to go on your screen. It doesn't care how big the screen is. It doesn't care if it's a billboard, if it's on the side of a space shuttle, or if it's on the side of a pen. It doesn't matter what size it's at. It's always going to look beautiful because it doesn't ever work in pixels. Okay? Now, the problem with vector is that you can't do anything photorealistic. There just isn't enough information there, right? It doesn't have the granularity that pixels do, which every pixel is different. It doesn't have that. Instead, we're looking at more broad shapes. So this is kind of like, the live action Spider-Man versus the cartoon Spider-Man, right? You can definitely tell right away the difference between something that's cell shaded versus something that's, real life. Photoshop is the real life application. Illustrator is the cell shaded, if that makes sense. Okay. When we're working in Illustrator, we're going to save files out as, SVGs, which stand for scalable vector graphics, EPS files, PDF files, all those different kind of file formats. When we're working with raster files or Photoshop, we're going to be saving things out as like JPEG, JPEG, or JPG, as PNG, as BMP, all of these kind of GIF. Those are all, raster file formats. Okay. So why would we use Photoshop over Illustrator? Well, Photoshop is primarily designed to work with photos. So if we want to go ahead and, edit a photo that we've taken with our camera or edit a graphic or something like that to be photorealistic, we're going to work on Photoshop. We're going to use Photoshop for that. Illustrator is designed for vector artwork. So things like logos, typefaces, all that kind of stuff are perfect in Illustrator. Anything to do with print is actually much better to be done with Illustrator versus Photoshop because Photoshop is restricted to pixels. So it's restricted to a certain resolution. And if I were to try to make what my printer could be printing, 600 dots per inch, 300 dots per inch, something like that. So every inch is using 300 dots from the printer, which is kind of like pixels. That's a massively high resolution file, and it's really big for something like Photoshop to edit. So a lot of times when people use Photoshop for print, they end up getting kind of subpar results because things are a bit, pixelated when they go to print it out, and it just doesn't look very good. Or the file sizes are really huge. Photoshop's really not designed to be doing graphic design work. It's really designed to be do photo editing work. It's really what it's for. Illustrator is much better for something like graphic design work because, yes, you're working more with cel-shaded stuff. You can bring in images, though, inside the application. It doesn't really do much editing, but it can have images as well. But the point is any of the text, any of the shapes, anything like that you go ahead and draw and do in Illustrator are going to look amazing when you go to print them out, right? And you can go ahead and print it huge or you can print it small. It doesn't matter. It's going to look fantastic. So Illustrator is actually better for print. Or anything that's really shape-based. As I said, like logos, business cards, letterheads, things like that are perfect. Okay, we're going to go through all of those applications and get a little bit deeper in them. But what I want you to understand is where InDesign sits. InDesign actually sits directly dab in the middle. InDesign is known as more of a layout composition tool. So it's designed to go ahead and take those photorealistic, edits that you've done in Photoshop in those vector graphics you've done in Illustrator and put them together in one application. Ready for print, ready for, ebooks, ready for anything like that, right? It's a composition tool. So you're doing layouts, you're moving things around. You can support mass amounts of text. So if you, for example, are putting together a school textbook with tons of images and a lot of words and pages and pages and pages of content, 100, 200 pages, you're not going to want to do that in Photoshop. You'll end up losing your mind. And you're not going to want to do that in Illustrator either because there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of pages to try to manage, and it doesn't have the tools built in. You'll want to do it in InDesign. InDesign is what's going to manage all of those pages. You're going to use templates. You're going to use style guides like we used to do like we did in Word, right? So these are what my headings are going to look like, and you can change them all rapidly on the fly. This is what my page layout's going to look like. Every page is going to look like this, and the text just auto flows inside of it, right? So InDesign is designed for massive publications, as well as you can do logo design and I shouldn't say logo design, sorry, business card design and letterheads as well in InDesign, just like you could in Illustrator. But it's more in tuned for print. It's more in tuned, to be just ready to go, ready to send off to your print house and run it. So if you're building a flyer or multi-page brochure, InDesign is the application. If you've ever used Microsoft Publisher, that's a really common composition tool that's used a lot. InDesign is the professional version of Publisher. Publisher is more of a consumer level, even though it can be a very complicated tool and it could be a lot of fun to use, and it actually works well. InDesign is the professional version of that tool. So this is somebody that's gone to school specifically for composition and layout. They're going to use InDesign for something like that, right? So it's got more of the industry standard tools for print houses and all that kind of stuff when they go ahead and for publishers and things like that, right? Okay. It's a lot of talking. What does all that mean so far? Back to the raster versus vector. Pixel density is another thing that we have to understand. So pixel density refers to how many pixels per inch when looking at something that's printed. It's measured in PPI, so pixels per inch. And it's something we need to understand when we go ahead and take something that's not raster and we want to print it. That's not vector and we want to print it. Because when it's vector, it's a shape. It doesn't matter. It's going to look beautiful. We don't care what the pixel density is because it doesn't have a pixel density. It's just mathematically created and able to spit out on a page. So if I were to actually kind of show you this for a second, I would open up Illustrator. Let's go ahead and fire up Illustrator for just a moment. Try to illustrate my point, if you will. Come on. It's on my wrong screen here. Here we go. Over here, computer. There we go. Okay, so if I were to go ahead and just create a new file for a second in Illustrator. Wow, this is not going fast, is it? There we go. And let's go ahead and work in inches, for example, just to create a size. So this is like a letter size document. Go ahead and click create. There we go. Full screen this for a sec. So on this canvas here, you know, I can go ahead, as I said, I can put shapes in, I can put a circle in, I can do whatever I need to do, you know, kind of flip the colors here a bit. I could create shapes, I could do all this kind of stuff. I can throw text on here, right? And make it as big as I want or as small as I want. Oops. Okay, doesn't look beautiful, but just bear with me for a second. Round this a little bit. And I'm starting to create what's known as a vector-based application, or vector-based artwork. Okay. Now, when I go ahead and print this, I don't care what size this is at, because it'll scale. It'll always look beautiful. It doesn't matter how much I zoom into this, you know, because this is mathematically created, it's never going to pixelize. I can zoom in as much as I want on that line, and it's always going to look beautiful. I can zoom in as much as I want on that text, and it's always going to look beautiful, right? It doesn't matter. But if I were to go ahead and drop an image in, say, for example, one of the images that I just downloaded, like this one, for example, this image is really large, right? So this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet. This is a massive image. Look how big this image is comparative to the page, right? The page is really small. But if I were to zoom in on this image, it gets very pixelated once I start to zoom in. So if I were to actually print this, there's actually a problem. It could end up being pixelated depending on how big this image is. Now, this image is really high resolution. So if I were to kind of size this down and put it as a full background for my print here, it's going to look fantastic. But what I'm doing is I'm making sure that before I print this, I'm going to make sure that this image is high enough resolution that it won't be pixelated when I go to print it. And what we use is we use an industry standard called PPI, or pixels per inch, or DPI. Printers actually print in DPI, which is dots per inch, and they're equatable to each other. And how that works is when I go ahead and send this to a print house, I might say to them, I want this printed in 300 DPI. So 300 dots per inch is what I want. And I'm going to make sure that my image is 300 PPI or higher. Otherwise, if it's under 300 PPI, when they go to try to print at that resolution, it's going to pixelate because the pixels just aren't there. So even though I'm in Illustrator, I'm working with a bitmap in Illustrator. I'm working with a rastered image in Illustrator, which you can totally do, just like you can do the opposite in Photoshop. Illustrator is primarily designed to do this stuff, which is the cel-shaded stuff. But you can go ahead and you can bring in images as well. And Illustrator's got tools built in that actually tell me what the resolution is of this image. So right now, this image at this size on an 8.5 by 11 is running at 472 pixels per inch. So I know when I'm looking at this, when I go to print this, it's not going to be pixelated. It's going to look really, really good. If I were to go ahead and make this a lot bigger because I want to crop to a certain section on this image, and zoom back in here. So I want to crop to a certain section. Say I want just like these mountains in the background here, and I want to crop all the way around here. Here, we'll go ahead and let's do a real quick crop so I can kind of illustrate my point a little bit better. And I'll show you guys how to do all this. That's fine. There we go. So now I got this image here, and that looks great. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly where I want to crop this image. It's going to look really good on my print. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this image and say, you know, okay, what's my PPI right now? The PPI, because I've zoomed in so much on this image, is only 58 at its current position. So it's only running at 58 pixels per inch. This is going to look terrible even on a crappy printer. It's going to look like junk. It's going to be super pixelated. This image isn't high enough resolution for me to zoom in like this. And you might ask, okay, well, you know, what should I be shooting for? Is it always 300? No, not necessarily. 300, that's magazines. That's high resolution prints, right? That's something you're going to get really close to, and you want it to look beautiful. It looks absolutely perfect. Really, really high resolution. But something like, you know, more industry standard for something a little lower res, or something you're going to be a little bit farther back from, you might be able to get away with 150 to 200 pixels per inch. The 58 will always look like junk unless you're really far away from it. But a piece of paper really far away from a piece of paper doesn't really make much sense, does it? So that's kind of like the idea of what's known as pixels per inch. So what I would do in this case is I would either try to source a larger image or go ahead and resize this so that it's actually going to look the way I want. I can actually open up this little properties pane and pull it out. I should be able to pull it out. because they moved everything. That's fine. We'll just do that. Bring it down, click it. Now it's at 167. Get down. Now it's at like that 270. 270 is probably pretty good. And I can crop it kind of like that. And now I have the image like this. So either I find a higher resolution image, a larger image, or I go ahead and crop a little bit, a little smaller, or a little larger, I should say. And by having that, I'm going to go now make sure when I go to print this that it's going to look good. So PPI is really, really important with printing. So it's really important in composition is to understand, is my image big enough, right? And is it high enough resolution that it's not going to look pixelated? So pixels per inch on a screen, or DPI, dots per inch, it's all here in the notes, on physical media. So that's anytime you're printing anything. In most high quality print jobs, 300 PPI is common, resulting in a high resolution print, like I said, magazines. Whereas newspapers, lower quality prints can sometimes be lower, all the way down to 72, which is in fact what we use in older monitors. So an older monitor, high resolution, a high pixel per inch monitor would just be actually running at 72 PPI. So normally around there. It's kind of interesting. Awesome. Any questions about all that so far? Have I lost anybody? What time is it anyway? 1:17. So what we'll probably do is, once an hour we'll take a 5-minute break, and then at the 2-hour mark we'll take a little bit longer of a break, and then that way it just feels a little bit better, I think, for like the pacing of everything. For a 4-hour course, 4-hour class can get pretty long. Yeah, we'll go for. I'll just start the next topic, and then we'll jump into a break. So now let's talk about CMYK versus RGB versus Pantone, because that's really important. So last semester we talked a little bit about color. We talked about color on the web, and I don't know if we dove into CMYK. Did we talk about color in print? Do you guys remember?
I don't think so.
Okay, no problem. So let's talk about that for a second. So when you go ahead and print something versus when you go ahead and display something with light using a monitor or your screen on your phone or whatever, or projector, whatever it is, we have to understand that color works differently, right? You have additive versus what's known as subtractive color, right? So what I mean by that is on the web, we actually go ahead and we display, sorry, not on the web, in digital, on screens, in light, we actually display things using red, green, and blue. Those are 3 primary colors. That's what you would have learned back in like elementary school. And if you ever take a look at the video, that like video, or the video, that image, like that famous image of like a color prism. Anybody seen a color prism before? Yeah, this one here. Where like, this might hurt your brain a little bit, but white light, it goes into the prism, and the prism splits it out into a rainbow, right, of all the different colors that we get from a rainbow, right? How that works is we have to think about light this way, because when we look at a monitor, when we look at our phone, we're looking at a light source. That's what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at light. And when we create color in the light, we have to think about, okay, well, what's white light? What's black light, right? Not like a black light like for Halloween, but what's black, right? How do we create black on a monitor? How do we create white on a monitor? How do we create violet or purple on a monitor, right? So how do we create these different colors? We do it by adding to it, right? Because we got to think about a light bulb. So if you were to take a light bulb and turn that light on, you get white light, right? We look at the sun, it's white. You can say it's yellow, but the sun is white. It's creating white light. It's casting white light. You go into your room, you turn lights on. The lights are white. They cast white light. Of course, there's temperature. We talked about temperature last semester. But, for all intents and purposes, it's white light. How does that work? Well, it actually works because you're getting all of the colors together. You're actually getting red, green, and blue, and all the little colors in between. You're getting them all together, and together at each of those, if there are 3 bulbs, red, green, and blue bulb, and they're all at 100% brightness, and they were to jump through a prism in the opposite direction, you would get white light coming out of it. Okay, so white on the web, white in digital, white in anything on a screen is created by using 100% brightness of your red, your green, and your blue. All 3 together create white. Okay, that's why it's additive, because you're adding them together to create a color. How do you create black? How do you create black on a monitor? How do you create black on a screen? Does anybody know how you create black? No idea. That's okay. A lot of people, we don't think about it. Nope, not all the colors. All the colors create white in light. Turn it off. Jeanette, you got it. Exactly. How do you create black on a monitor? You turn off all the lights. So there's none of them. So when you see black in your monitor, what you're actually seeing, or black on your screen, now there's a lot more technically happening because there's a backlight and all that kind of fun jazz. But what you're actually seeing is you're not seeing any red, green, or blue. You're actually seeing all of those colors off. Red, green, and blue are off. Just like if you go into a room, if you want the room to be illuminated in white light, you turn the lights on. If you want it to be dark and black, you turn the lights off. That's literally how light works, right? So the absence of light creates the color black on your monitor, or anything in any sort of light source. Sophia, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering because I know there's certain like computers or phones or something where they'll turn the pixels off to create black versus like what's the difference between those two things? Because I know it can affect things. Like me and my husband had a VR set and we bought a new one, and the new one did something different with the blacks that really like threw off the whole thing. So.
Totally. So the technology, what we're looking at, that's the more of a technical conversation, but what you're looking at is a lot of times OLED versus LCD, versus LED versus all these different kind of technologies that can be used in a monitor, on a phone screen, all that kind of stuff, right? A lot of times on newer phones, you're looking at OLED, so it's called OLED. And then you're thinking about things like backlighting, right? So in older LCD screens, you're looking at something that has a backlight. So basically there's a white light in between it and behind the pixels that go ahead and illuminate the entire panel and shine that light towards you so you can see it. So it's like you set your brightness on your TV, you're setting your backlight on your TV or on your screen, right? And that illuminates kind of all the pixels. So even if you turn a pixel off to the point where it's not emitting red, green, or blue, there's still a light behind it that goes ahead and shines through. So you still kind of get a gray color, right? It's not true black. So newer screens that have like something like true black technology, or like, pixels that can turn off, if you will, it's because literally now they're thinking of, okay, instead of having a one big backlight, we're going to do things like local dimming so we can dim certain sections of it, or we can actually have technology that instead truly turns it off. So OLED promised that because it's, they listed the contrast ratio to like 1 in a million, right? You could go all the way from 100% black to 100% white, and you can do that. So again, it's more of the technical side of it. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, a site that actually does really good at talking about that and really kind of deep diving into like how the different panel technology works is actually Canadian too. It's from Quebec, Montreal, I think, is rtings.com. They're fantastic, especially if you're going to buy a TV or anything like that. You want to think about pixels, you want to think about panel technology, TFT versus OLED, all that jazz. This is a great place to go, and they have some information on here about like, how does this work? How does lighting work with matte panels and stuff? But yeah, it's a great question. A little bit beyond what we're doing in this class, but it's a great question.
Yeah, I was just curious. I wasn't sure if that kind of was something they could do on like different media on laptops or something. But thank you.
Yeah, you're getting into at that point like, higher end laptops or something that's going to use like more sophisticated display technology in order to truly turn everything off, right? But for all intents and purposes for this class, we can think about it as, the lights off or the lights on. And that's how we display it. Right? And because it's additive, we can go ahead and take, for example, if I have this little graphic here, which is nicely displays it. If I want to go ahead and create yellow, I just have to go ahead and turn red and green on at 100% and turn blue 100% off. So my 3 light bulbs, RGB light bulbs, that would create yellow, right? And if I wanted to create purple or wanted to create cyan, I would go ahead and just have a combination of my other colors, red and blue, create purple, and green and blue, create this kind of like cyan color, right? And if I want to create white, I put all of them at 100%. I can create any variation of color just by simply changing the percentages of how much those colors are on, how red, green, and blue are on. So that's fantastic. That's all digital. So when we're working with video, when we're looking at something on our screen, we see it in RGB. We see it in light. But when we print on a piece of paper, it's much different. We usually print on a white piece of paper, and we're putting color onto the piece of paper. But in order to create white, when we print, when we send something off, say we design, beautiful brochure or a logo or business card or letterhead, whatever it is, we go to send it to a print house to print it. We print on a white piece of paper, so it's the opposite. So in order to create white, instead of having everything at 100%, we have everything at 0%. We take all the color away. It's subtractive to get to white. So if we want it white, we don't put anything on the piece of paper, and it's white, right? Because the media is white. Now, there is a weird caveat in this. There are printers that can print white ink. And, you're printing on, for example, like a cotton t-shirt, and you want to actually soak the color into the cotton instead of just screen over top of it. You can go ahead and you can actually print white, which is pretty cool. But that's a weird caveat, for, again, that all intents and purposes, or my favorite is all intensive porpoises. That's my favorite version of that. Anyway, in order to create white, you're not going to put anything on the piece of paper, so you're subtractive, right? And in order to create color, you're going to go ahead and add, any combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, or black, in order to put colors on. Now, in order to create black, it's the opposite. So in light and RGB, we're going to turn all the lights off. In CMYK, we're going to dump all the colors on the paper to create black. Now, in theory, CMY would be enough. Cyan, magenta, and yellow, those three specific colors. If I were to take all of them and put them all together, I would create black. Just like if I were to take all of them and take them all away, I create white, being subtractive. Now, if I actually take cyan, magenta, and yellow, and I go ahead and put them all together in one blob on this piece of paper, it would actually turn out to be a gross brown color. So it really wouldn't create black. It truly doesn't create black. So in order to create black, we need a separate printer cartridge called K, or black. It's also known as the key color. And that's how we create black. So when you go ahead and buy a color cartridge and a black cartridge for your printer, or if your printer has all separate cartridges for each color, or however your inkjet printer is working, that's how it works, is you have the black creates the black. Now, what sometimes your printer will do in order to use a lot more ink, could be a weird conspiracy, is they'll actually use a combination of all of it. They'll use CMY and K to create black and call it like true black or something, right? Or like rich black. But that's really what it's doing, is it's taking all the colors and putting them together with the black to even make it more black, or more of a dark color version of it. It's kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, it's just simply the opposite. RGB versus CMYK is simply the opposite. And it is a completely different color space. So when we go ahead and print something that we see on the screen, our screen has to emulate as close as possible to what they think it's going to look like. But if you were to ever go ahead and say like, okay, well, I want it to look exactly the same as what I see on my screen as what gets printed, it's not going to happen, right? Because our screens are calibrated for light. They're not set up to emulate print, right? That's just not how it works. Right? If it was emulated print, you'd have to shine a light at your screen in order to see it, instead of the screen shining a light at you, right? Now, there's weird caveats to that, because there's e-ink displays. E-ink display, something like on your Kindle, is actually a physical media. It's actually like little particles, little magnetic particles that are reassembling itself on the screen. So you're not actually using RGB at all. You're using, because I think they have color e-ink displays, and you're looking at a light source shining in at it. That's why like the lit Kindles actually have a light on the top shining down on the screen versus from below. And that creates so you can see the color and you can see, whatever. Anyway, we don't need to go into that, but to confuse anybody. But that's the really difference between RGB and CMYK. The important thing to understand is the difference between the two when we're printing, and the difference in costs when we're printing. So if I want to go ahead and order, for example, a form to fill out, I might order that form in black and white to save money, right? Because it's only going to use K. It's only going to use one color. So I can do a whole run in just K, and it's only going to use that color. Now, if I want to go ahead and order it in color, I'm now using 4 cartridges instead of 1. So my cost is going to go up at the print house. Makes sense. Now I'm using CM, Y, and K in order to run the same print. There's a weird thing that all of a sudden happens, though, when we start talking about what's known as Pantone. So Pantone is this wonderful color association. They release the color of the year every single year. This year is, what's the color of the year? I think it's like a purple. Actually, I don't know. What's the color for 2022? I don't even see it. Every year they have color of the year. I'm seeing a lot of blues. Have they not released the color of the year? I don't know. I feel like I always look at the site when it's already here.
Carrie, it's purple.
Is it
Pretty sure
purple was last year, was it not?
That is that color right there. Very
oh yeah,
Perry.
color of the year 2022. Very Perry.
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
think so.
Thanks, Pamela. Yeah, so there we go.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't even see this banner. That's really funny. I thought last year was last year coral. Maybe last year was coral. Here we go. It was gray. Wow. Last year was gray. Coral was back in 2019. Anyway, so this is the color of the year from Pantone. So aside from releasing the color of the year, which, you know, totally changes the industry and affects, you'll see a lot. We're going to see a lot of purple this year, like in fashion and all that kind of stuff. Aside from that, Pantone exists because they release what are known as color books. They release what are known as Pantone cartridges, if you will. And what they are perfectly calibrated versions of a color. So, for example, Niagara College, when they go ahead and print something, they're going to use their version of the color. And I used to remember what it was. I think it's 365C. I think that's the color. So they're going to use a very specific version of blue. And it's always the same. And that's the idea behind Pantone, is because they're perfectly calibrated. So let's rewind for a second and let's talk about a print shop just real quick. So a print shop has all of these big sophisticated printers. And each printer has the ability to print cyan, magenta, yellow, or K, black. Now, a good print shop is going to calibrate their printer. So they're going to make sure they're going to have like a reference card, and they're going to go ahead and print a calibration sheet that prints out a whole bunch of different color. And they're going to say, okay, do I need to adjust the printer, this big industrial printer? Do I need to adjust this industrial printer or commercial printer? Is the cyan right? Is the magenta right? Is the yellow right? Do I need to adjust it a little bit? How is it creating purples? How is it creating whatever, right? So it's how is it creating all these colors? And they're going to calibrate that. They're going to calibrate that. Okay. Now what happens is when they go ahead and print something based on their calibration settings, you know, so if I order 10,000 brochures done in CMYK with the Niagara College blue, just using CMYK and not Pantone, you know, when I go ahead and order it in January and then order it again for September, it's going to look different. Slightly different, but if I put the two beside each other, it's going to look slightly different because the colors are going to be calibrated a little bit differently because it's been calibrated again, right? And it's been changed a little bit, and it changes over time, right? So it's not going to look perfect. Well, it doesn't really work in branding. In branding, you want your color to always be the same. It's very important. John Deere has a color green. That green has to be identical every single time. They want the identical color or closest to it. Niagara College wants that blue, right? FedEx wants the, red that they have in their logo. You get the point, right? So what they're going to do is they're not going to print using CMYK for their color. They're going to print using Pantone for their color. So now instead of paying for 4 colors, they're going to pay for 5. They're going to pay for their cyan, their magenta, their yellow, their black, and whatever that specific Pantone that they want to print in. And that's what we use Pantone in the printing industry. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Whatever that is, 365C or whatever that color is that they're going to use for the Niagara College blue. They're going to do that, and every single time they use that blue color, it's going to be perfect. It's always going to be the same. Their logo will never look different. Their images, all the other stuff in the print might look a little bit differently calibrated, but their logo, their blue in their logo is never going to look a little bit too red. It's never going to look a little too green. It's always going to be the perfect blue, and they use Pantone for that. Now, the cool part about this is I used to order marketing material from Niagara College. Years ago, I used to work and do some marketing work for them, and I used to order forms, and I didn't want the forms in black and white because I wanted the Niagara College logo to be in blue, and I wanted a couple little things to be in the Niagara College blue, but I didn't want to pay for a color print plus Pantone. So instead what I used to do is I would literally pay for black and Pantone. and that's all I would do. So it would only ever print in shades of black and the Pantone blue, and that's all it would do. And it was great. It would look like a color form because it would have blue in it, but I didn't have to pay for CMY. So actually, I was able to save. It was almost as cheap as just printing it in black and white. It was actually pretty economical, and it was the perfect color. So you can do these kind of cool things. You talk to your print shop, you got to do these kind of cool things to go ahead and print with the color you need, but then thinking about it as a designer when you're creating the design, be like, you know, if I just do this, if I just make sure that I don't put any other colors in this, I can actually save significantly when I want to order, you know, 50,000 forms or whatever it is. You go into these high quantities, it starts to really matter, right? Cool. So that's Pantone. That's why you use Pantone. It's for that color accuracy. And I have that down in here. It's the Pantone is a color system known as the Pantone matching system, and it is a catalog of exact match colors that are used normally by a brand when trying to get perfect color presentation in a print. So for example, this is kind of our 3 different color systems, kind of all here. Here's our PMS color system, Pantone matching system. Here's the Pantone known as 7495C. C actually stands for coded. They have coded colors, uncoded colors. Uncoded colors are UC, if I remember correctly. CMYK, here's all my 4 colors for CMYK, and of course RGB. These 2 being for print, this one being for digital or screens. Okay, so you print media or screens. Physical media versus digital media. All right. Any questions about any of that? Did we learn something? So it does have the notes we talked about a little bit here. It does have that. Talks about kind of like why K exists, how color works in RGB and CMYK. These are great things to add to your notes. But what we're going to do is let's take a break, and when we jump back in from after the break, we're going to go ahead and play around with Photoshop. A lot of info. I know, right? Yes. If you have any questions about any of that kind of stuff, you can ask me. I don't do print anymore. I haven't done print in years, just because I've really moved myself into more digital. But I used to do a lot of print. So, and a lot of the rules haven't changed. Print's an industry that's been around for a long time. It's been very similar for a long time. So if you ever, need to order something, or you're thinking about that kind of stuff, just ask, right? You can ask me, or you know what, your printers, your print houses, find a good one. I used to do with print houses all the time, and it's unfortunately they're not all the same. There's a lot of times you go ahead and you put something out for tender, you try to get, you want a huge quantity of something, and you don't hear back from somebody for like 2 days for quoting, right? So it's just the way it is. Where other companies might give you a price on the phone, so it makes a big difference. But always shop your print if you're doing anything. If you're working for a company and you do need to do a higher quality print or higher quantity prints, go shop it around, right? There's a big difference. And talk to your printer, talk to them, ask them, what's the best way to send you files and all that jazz. And is there any way, how can I save money on this print? Like, what are we going to do for sizing? Because sometimes too, when it comes down to it, if I want to print something that's 8.5 by 11 and I want the color all the way to the end, all the way to the edges. So if I'm printing something on this sheet and I want the color all the way to the edge, okay, I have to set up what's called bleeds. We're going to talk about that this semester, called bleeds. Bleeds basically means I have to put the artwork past the piece of paper, because there's no such thing as a commercial printer, at least not for any of these high quantity projects, that prints to the edge. It doesn't do it. You can go ahead and buy an inkjet from Staples that prints to the edge for your home computer. But if you want to go ahead and get a high quantity printer that's a commercial grade printer, it doesn't print to the edge. It just doesn't. So what you need to do instead is they actually print past the edge on a bigger piece of paper. So you want an 8.5 by 11. What's actually happening when you go ahead and order an 8.5 by 11 that goes right to the edge is you're actually getting printed on something that's much larger than 8.5 by 11. And then they go ahead and divide it up on that big piece of paper. So they go ahead and, maybe one piece of paper holds 6 8.5 by 11s. And then what happens is it prints all that at once. And then they go ahead and slice, sometimes digitally, sometimes manually, depending on the quantities, depending on the print house. They might be manually slicing it, but they're going to go ahead and slice it down to 8.5 by 11. So you actually have to create what are known as bleeds, which are usually an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch past. And again, we're going to go through that this semester. And that just gives it because of human error, right? As you go to cut it, if you're off a little bit, you don't want any white showing. You want the color right to the edge. So it's called bleed. So it's bleeding past the edge, which is important. Now, what I'm saying is sometimes it makes sense to talk to the printer company and say, hey, I'm going to make some artwork up. I'm going to do a postcard size, or I'm going to do a sticker size, or I'm going to do a logo size, whatever. I'm going to do a specific size. What's a good way to break up my artwork in size to be most cost effective, right? Because sometimes that 5-inch by 10-inch postcard print is significantly more expensive than a 4-inch by 6-inch or 4-inch by 9-inch postcard print, for example. It would be a weird size, but anyway, so whatever that is. The 4x6, is sometimes significantly cheaper than the 5x7. Okay, that would make more sense. Even though it's only an inch, is because just the way they divide, and it's just an example, but just the way they divide the page up, you're getting less on a piece of paper. So there's a higher cost because you're using more giant pieces of paper when they go ahead and do it, right? So you call them up and be like, what's an economical size? This is what I'm looking at. I want to order 10,000 postcards. What's the most economical size for the postcard? And they're going to say, yeah, print it like this, set your bleeds like this, and you're going to save money that way, right? So anyway, I think weird tips, but weird things that you learn when you do a lot of print stuff. But again, having that relationship with the printer is really important if you guys are getting into that kind of stuff. So I'm going to teach you the tools this semester in order for you to get into that kind of stuff and get good at that kind of stuff, right? That's the important part. Okay, let's go ahead and take a break. I need another coffee. I'm sure you guys should get up, stretch your legs. So it's 1:42. Let's come back at 1:52. Pamela, I heard Dixon Inc. is in St. Catharines is good. Yeah, I didn't work too many with St. Catharines just because we were in Welland, but I think I've used Dixon before. We used to actually, my favorite printer, to be honest, for low quantity was TPH, which was the print house in Welland. Not there anymore, unfortunately, but they're just amazing. You could call them and get a price right away, and you could send a print job that's less than 1,000, whatever quantity. You can have it same day. I could literally order it at 10 o'clock in the morning and have it by 2 in the afternoon. Done in my hands, fully printed, high quality, price out on the phone, everything. It was that fast, which worked really well because I worked with international recruiters that they love to drop things on me last minute. So they'd be like, yeah, I'm going to China to go ahead and recruit for Niagara College students, and I'm leaving tomorrow. And hey, Chris, can we order X amount of this before that? Like, cool. That gives me less than a day to get the artwork done, get it to a print house, and get it done. Cool. Well, I can't say no because this is important. So we're gonna do it, right? And TBH was able to do that. But anyway, for higher quantity, we would go elsewhere. But as I digress. All right, let's take that break. Yeah, gotta love clients. That was the people I work with. They weren't even clients. They were like people that I worked beside. I'm like, come on, why are you doing this to me? Anyway, it's a long time ago. All right, everybody. See you in 10 minutes. All right. Got a fresh coffee.
Chris, did you happen to see Emily's post in the group? Did you guys address that?
What's the post in the group?
She just said to
Facebook?
ask you to call her regarding Splash Top because the dean needs details to address it.
Call on break if you can. Ooh, yes. Yes. Okay, hold on. I'll call her right now. I'll be right back, everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. See? You can't hear me. Now you can, right?
Yeah,
Just explaining.
I can
why I
muted.
asked people. I was literally just explaining on mute why I asked people if you guys can hear me. That's weird. Anyway, the reason why is because there's times when if I don't ask if you guys can hear me and I just go start talking, and then usually in a couple minutes somebody will go, "Hey, we can't hear you." Right? So it's better to just get it out of the way. So I apologize now, but in virtual Chris, we will hear that a lot. Which is, can everybody hear me? Right? Been 2 years of that. Okay, let's move on. So I'm sharing my screen, so hopefully you guys can see it. Let's move into Photoshop. So let's talk about Photoshop. Photoshop is a beast of an application, and if you've never used it before, it is a big application. There's a lot going on, but it's part of the Adobe suite, and there's a lot of things that are similar to Photoshop in Illustrator and InDesign, and not really Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro kind of does its own thing, but at least to InDesign and Illustrator, there's a lot of things that are similar. So that can really kind of help us. But what we're going to go is we're going to do kind of like a really quick overview of Photoshop. Then I'm going to tell you some of the really cool features that Photoshop has in it that a lot of people that use Photoshop for a long time might not even know about. So kind of some new stuff that they've added. And if you're like me, been using Photoshop for way too long, you used to have to do things that you don't have to do anymore because they've added tools that solves those problems. You don't have to do it manually. So I used to, have to do that stuff. So, but full disclosure, I don't use Photoshop very often. I just don't need it, right? So unless I'm editing a photo, I don't use it. I usually use Illustrator, right? That's just the way it is, because that's once you learn Illustrator and you learn how fantastic it is for vector, it's hard to go back. It really is. But Photoshop is super powerful for photo editing, and that's what we're going to talk about. So if I go ahead and open up, here's a little video here. I'm assuming. What? Hold on a second. Why do people have to change links? You know? Why do they have to do that? Don't think this is the right video. Get to know Photoshop. What was the video called that I'm trying to get to? Quick starts, key techniques. Thank you, Adobe, for changing the link. All right, hold on, everybody. Let's I'm gonna solve this problem real quick. So I have a better link to it. I do not. It's a 1 minute video. It was really good, and I got rid of it. Let's pretend let's see if we can find where it was. So it's probably in user guide. Introduction to Photoshop. PS Basics. I don't think this is a video. No, that's not what we want. They got rid of it. They used to have this fantastic video that was just like Photoshop in a minute, you know? Hold on, everybody. Just hold on 1 second. We're going to find it. Maybe they got rid of it. That's really sad. It was such a cool video. That's why I should just save the videos, you know? Create the unexpected. Let's click Learn Now. All right, I give up. It's fine. We don't need it. I'll just pretend. I'll just, pretend that I'm the person that's going to promote it. Okay, let's open up Photoshop. Let's start there. This video is still being recorded, right? Very important. Yes, it is. Very good. Okay. I haven't even opened it on this computer. Okay, so it should look a little bit at home, literally just because when you go ahead and open up Photoshop for the first time, what you're going to get is what's new, which should be very similar to Premiere Pro. So if you've never used Photoshop before, at least you kind of feel a little bit at home with their splash screen because they have unified the splash screens. I'm just going to go ahead and close this. We don't need this. You can watch those things if you'd like. It's not a bad idea. Just like in Premiere Pro, there's definitely a whole Learn tab where you're going to get to know different things. So if you are struggling at all, you can go ahead and do that. But what we're going to do instead is we're just going to go up to the top left, and we're going to click the blue button that says New File. Okay, new document. This again is something that you're going to recognize in InDesign and in Illustrator. It's basically identical. It's going to try to kind of give you the recent section, but really what it is you're going to go ahead and click on whatever you're doing. So if you're editing a photo, if you're editing a print, art and illustration, web, mobile, whatever you're doing, it's going to have a bunch of pre-saved presets. It's all it's doing is changing this stuff on the right? But you can go ahead and do it all manually anyway. So if I want to come in here, I might want to come in and go pixels, and I might want to just give myself, 1,000 by 1,000, for example, 1,000 pixels wide by 1,000 pixels tall. I don't need to go ahead and change orientation because it's a square, which is fine. But if I wanted to, if I was editing a photo, I might want to go ahead and rotate that photo. We're going to do that later in a minute, but just for a second, I'm just going to kind of quickly get into, and we're going to play around with some tools before we get into some other stuff. Okay. So it's going to give me what the resolution is in pixels per centimeter. If I can change it to pixels per inch, which is more useful for us because, we are so influenced by the imperial system here in Canada. So we're going to do pixels per inch. And that's the PPI. So it should default to 300, but that's the resolution of the image, right? So many pixels per inch in the 1,000 by 1,000. It's going to ask my color mode. So if I'm doing work for the web or if I'm doing work for print, that's where I'm going to want to change my color mode. So I'm literally going to usually go with RGB or CMYK because I'm going to be editing photos. Photos are printed. Probably going to do CMYK, right? Personally, I'll do all my artwork for graphic design, things like that, in Illustrator. And then I'll do all my, depending on the type of graphic design. If you're going to do, you know, brushing and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, that kind of graphic design, like more artsy stuff, then you're going to definitely want to sit in RGB and be in Photoshop. And other than that, we're good. We don't need to change our background contents are white. That's fine. It's a default. It's totally good. We're just going to go ahead and click create. So it's going to drop me in here. This thing is going to drive me crazy. Put that over there. It's going to drop me in and and give me kind of like the default of Photoshop, right? This is a fresh install here. It's going to go ahead and do some tooltips, pop some stuff up. You don't need them, but that's fine. And it's going to give me kind of the modern workflow of Photoshop. So things changed a lot. Things moved around a lot. But this is kind of like the basically the modern workflow. At the top here is my properties panel. So this is anything that I've selected, any tool that I've selected. I'm actually going to get this to change. So right now I have this marquee tool. If I go ahead and click the move tool, you can see the options change. If I go ahead and click, like, for example, the type tool, and there it goes. It's going to change to type tool stuff. But essentially, even like the pointer path selection tool, it's going to change, right? So essentially, though, you know, the Photoshop piece of this is it's going to feel a little bit more clumsy at the beginning because there's not just a mouse cursor, normal mouse cursor, right? There's a move tool, which is to move, which is to move things, but it's not like, I don't know. Once you get into it, you'll start to understand kind of how things are layered and how things work. But tools are on the left, tool properties at the top. On the right-hand side, these are my panels, okay? So my big panels that I really want to deal with are, for example, another version of the properties panel, which is going to be almost identical to the one at the top. It's going to be over here. But this bottom right is really where you live in Photoshop, which is the layers panel. So the layers panel, that is all the different layers of your edits, and each layer representing something else that's happening. Okay, so right now I have one layer, just background. But if I were to go ahead and grab the type tool and just start typing, you can see instantly what's happened is I've gone ahead and created a new layer automatically. Photoshop's gone ahead and added in one called layer 1. Now, once I click away, it's going to rename it to some text, which just happens to be what the layer says. You can double click in here. You can rename this to, you know, text, layer, whatever. Having these really nicely organized is kind of a Photoshop thing. People do that a lot. But here I have my background. My background's locked, and I have my text layer over top of it. Now, we're not really going to do this kind of work in here in Photoshop. We're not really going to do a lot of text work and stuff. What we're really going to be doing is photo manipulation. But it's kind of a quick explanation of what's happening. Each layer has an opacity and an opacity type, a blend mode. Okay, and that's going to change how it blends with the background and opacity. It also has a fill, which isn't the same. That's okay. We're going to play with that. The other thing that you're going to want to know is kind of how to undo something. So this is one of my favorite panels right here. It's called the history panel, and it allows, basically, it shows you everything you've done since you've opened this document. So at one point we renamed this layer. So I can actually click back and click around. It's going to show me what's going on. So this is like undo, redo, like the super version of it, like the Harry Potter version, right? You go ahead and really see what's going on as things moved and all that kind of stuff. And you can restore states to that and stuff, which is pretty neat. Okay. So again, not too much else is going on. These are my main tools on the left-hand side. There's a lot here. It can be daunting. But at the end of the day, like as you mouse over things, it's going to tell you what to do. And in Photoshop's even gone ahead and added a whole bunch of features to help you, right? So for example, this is the lasso tool. It tells you what the lasso tool is. That's for creating selections. And the object selection tool, which is like a new tool that allows you to just automatically select objects. Crop tool, whatever, right? Frame tool. You're going to come down here if you want to add shapes. There's a shape tool way down here. If I right click on it, it gives me different shapes. So for example, if I wanted to do what I did in Illustrator earlier, just draw, a rectangle and a circle, I go ahead and grab my rectangle tool, draw this rectangle, draw my circle tool, draw my circle, whatever, and put it on here. Okay. Again, it's a raster tool. These are somewhat editable, but at the end of the day, you know, you can edit them to a certain point, but at the end of the day, it is creating rastered images at the end. So it's all about pixels. So again, you're really not going to want to do this kind of work in Photoshop. Okay, you really, this is where you are living and this is where you are doing this kind of stuff, you definitely want to get into the habit of moving this over to Illustrator. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to quickly delete these. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the layer here and in my layer tool, and I'm just going to click delete. A little can here. I'm just going to delete that one. No, delete that one. And delete that one. Kind of reset everything back. Now, what are cool stuff that you might want to do? Well, you might want to resize photos. That might be a thing you might want to do. So I'm just actually going to get rid of this. Don't save. And I'm going to grab some of the stuff that we have here in Finder. So I've got a whole bunch of photos here. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag them in to Photoshop. Just go ahead and drag them in. And let it give it a second. I just dragged that right in. What's done is it's created these tabs. Each image now is sitting in its own tab at the top, right? And actually, those images, I'm going to actually add the rest of them. The only thing I'm not going to do is the logo. Just going to add them all. Here we go. Drag them in. Oh, careful. Don't do what I do. But once you're in here, don't drag them directly over top of this because it'll actually add them all to here. Cancel. There we go. There we go. What we're going to do instead, we're going to try it one more time. And when we drag it in, we're actually going to drag it in to this bar right here. Not in this area, because it'll actually add it to that document. We want to create new for each of these. So I'll actually drag it up here. There we go. So now it's got a whole bunch of them. Everything is here. All the images that I have are now open. They're each in their own little document. They all have their own layers. They're all, everything's going on. Everything's locked and ready to go to start editing. Okay. So what I might want to do is I might want to resize. I might want to resize this photo. So, you know, right now I want to see, okay, well, how big is it? It's a 25% zoom level. If I were to go to like 100% zoom level for a second, zoom level is that bottom left, you can see how big this photo is. Very, very large, right? So I want to see like, okay, and it's 2,376 pixels wide by 3,583 pixels wide, right? That's the canvas. The canvas is kind of what it's sitting on. I can resize the canvas just quickly in here, but it's not really what I want to do. I don't want to change the size of the canvas. I want to change actually the size of everything. So what I can do is I can go to image at the top here and I can go ahead and click image size. This will pop this up. And what this is going to do is Photoshop loves previewing stuff. You can kind of preview what it's going to look like, the quality, pixel quality. And I zoom in to see what it's going to be, especially if I'm trying to, you know, bring it up. But what I want to do is I actually want to go ahead and change maybe, okay, what do I need to do to get this to 300, right? What size do I need? What size would this image have had to be, right? So I actually want to do a custom, you can kind of fit to like, you know, whatever size you want. So like, what would, you know, I want this image to be resized to like 8.5 by 11 at 300 DPI, whatever. Or you just go ahead and type it in. So if I go back to inches, or pixels, I should say, for a second. And I can kind of go ahead and say like, okay, well, I actually want to fit it to 1,000 pixels. But the largest edge would be 1,000. So the height will be 1,000 because that's the largest edge. So you have to fit it into something that's, you know, maximum 1,000 pixels tall or something. But I want to keep the resolution high. So I want to keep it like 300, like 1,000, right? Kind of reset it that way and kind of see where we're going. That's going to be a bit pixelated once I zoom in, but you know, that kind of thing. It's going to try to resample that image and try to get it to where it needs to be. But if I kind of came in here and just did something like this and just press OK, let's go ahead and resize that image. I can go ahead and zoom in on it, just hold Alt on the keyboard. And didn't do a great job, right? Kind of pixelated it a bit. So let's undo that for a second. Just Control Z or Command Z on your keyboard. Get that back to where it was. Okay, and try that again. Go image size. And this time I'm not going to touch this resolution. I'm just going to go ahead and type in 1,000 here. There we go. And that's good. Press OK. As you can see, this did a worse job almost, right? But that's fine. As you kind of zoom in, you can definitely see you've lost quality when you resize something, but because it has to throw pixels out. At the end of the day, it's got to throw pixels out in order to go down in size. Okay, but something like that would be easy enough to go ahead and resize. It wouldn't really matter that much if I want to save it out like that. Now, the other way to resize this is actually to not size it all in here, but size it on what's called export. So if I go to kind of File for a second and I go to Export and I do Export As, it's going to open up the Photoshop export tool. Now, this has changed a lot over the years. You got to remember the way it used to be. But the big thing is it's going to say, okay, what file type do you want it? Do you want it as a JPEG? Do you want it as a PNG? Quick note, you're really not going to use GIFs for anything, especially if you're trying to bring stuff into Premiere Pro or InDesign. You're not going to want to save it as a GIF. PNG is going to be your high quality version, and it supports transparency. So if you want something with like a transparent background or something, you can go ahead and make sure you set it to PNG. Otherwise, JPEG is a really normal way to send files on the web. It's definitely going to bring your file size down a lot, comparative. It's called a lossless format or lossy format, so it actually throws pixels out as you kind of change your quality settings. You can go ahead and change your quality setting, for example, to great, and you can see the file size all of a sudden went up to 4.2 megabytes. You can try to excellent. It's going to bring it down, whatever it is, versus like a PNG, you know. See what PNG comes at is 12 megs, right? So PNG is going to be bigger, but if it doesn't matter, if you're bringing this into print, into a print application, you're going to want the quality. So you're probably going to want to save it as that. What you can do in here, which is pretty cool, is you can come in and say, okay, well, now I want to set this to 1,000. And it'll scale it on the fly. And the cool thing about this is it's scaled it here without affecting the original. The original is still at the same quality in Photoshop. Nothing's changed there. It's just on export. So now when I go ahead and click export, you know, it's going to ask me where I want to put it. It's going to create a new copy of this image at that size. Okay. So if you're like trying to email something to somebody and the files are too big or something, you could use Photoshop to resize images. You can do that. This little 2 up here is just literally going to give you a preview of 2 different versions of the file, right? So this is a PNG. It's a smaller version of the PNG, which doesn't really help. We got to zoom in a bit. But you can kind of try to compare quality. So if I set this to, you know, 100% scale back again, just for a second, just kind of show you how this tool works, right? And zoom way in. Now it's going to try to compare, okay, well, this is what it's going to look like. This is what a JPEG at 2.4 megabytes is going to look like versus a PNG at 12.8 megabytes, right? So same pixel resolution and everything like that, you just have a different file format, right? So you can kind of see like, okay, I'm going to zoom in and try to see, you know, where am I losing? Where are things kind of getting a little grainy and stuff? These are probably almost identical just because I'm comparing an excellent JPEG to a PNG. If I go to like a good JPEG, you can start to see maybe a little bit of problems. To be honest, red usually kind of can get degraded really quickly. It's hard to tell. But you can, red is definitely a lot more pixelated on this side, on that JPEG side. But anyway, as I digress. But again, this is all the kind of stuff you can kind of do as you go and get and try to resize photos for export, which is pretty neat. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what photos we have here so we can kind of play with them. So one of the things that you might want to do is something like this. This photo is breaking one of the rules just because it's literally, you know, if I kind of were to draw a line here, you can see that the photo is not straight. This photo is not straight at all, right? So it's completely off a bit. So what I'm going to do instead is I want to go ahead and I want to straighten this. So Photoshop has tools built in that allow us to come in and actually straighten things. And all I got to do is go to my tool here, my crop tool, and come up to the top here, and I can actually change it whatever resolution that I end up wanting. I can actually, we'll leave it at ratio just for a second, and then come in and go ahead and click the straighten button here, and then draw a line. Draw a line, for example, there, and it'll actually straighten it based on that, right? So I'll just undo that for a second again. I clear this. Gonna hold, click the straighten tool, and I can really draw a line anywhere. So, but I know that, for example, I want this kind of like line in between these buildings to be straight. So I can actually come down here again, just draw a line from the top to the bottom or wherever, and it'll use that as a reference point when it goes and straightens it, which is pretty awesome. So now this image, that part of the image has been straightened, right? Which is pretty neat. Okay, it's kind of a weird perspective image, so it's kind of tough. But even on this image here, I can go ahead and play around with that. So I can go ahead and click the crop tool, come up here, click the straighten tool, and go ahead and make sure that this is straight. You can see it's actually a little bit off. It's off about 0.7 degrees. And go ahead and straighten that, click away, and now that part of the image is straightened. So really quick edits like that are so easy with something like the straighten tool, which makes it a lot easier, right? Actually, I should have another image here, which is the... I can find it. Is that other photo? Is it the first one? Second one, third one. Huh, I don't know where it is. I have another photo. It's like Did I not bring it into Photoshop? Where are you, image? Where did you go? This one's good too. You can do the horizon line in this one. That's a good one. Anyway, you guys get it. I don't know where that image went. I don't think I brought it in, I guess. But yeah, that one here, which is this one. Yeah, this one's good too for that straighten. You know, just kind of really quickly. And I just love it. It's so easy, right? Just kind of come in here, draw a line right on it. It's actually really close to straight. It's off by about 0.3 degrees. And now we're that part of the image is straight, which is good. So, or whatever part. Pretty simple. Okay, cool. The other thing I might want to do is I might want to do some color correction, right? Like this water here in this photo looks absolutely terrible. So I might want to come in here and really do some color correction. Now, what I want to do is I want to leave the original logo image here is this crop preview right here. This is I want to leave that completely alone because I don't want to edit the original. I want to be able to preview kind of between things. There it goes. It was just loading. Now it's saying background locked, right? So there's a reason why by default it's going to lock everything, and is because this original image, I want to be able to make edits to it without breaking it at all, right? Which is important. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go ahead and click Add Adjustment Layer, and we can use an adjustment layer to go ahead and make the edits. Oops. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. So these little kind of tools at the bottom, you can kind of see them down here. You know, this is add a mask. This is create new fill or adjustment layer. This is create a new group. So you can kind of group layers together. And this is create new layer. That one obviously we know is delete. So I actually want to click this one here. It says create new fill or adjustment layer. And I can come in here, kind of right click on that and do, for example, I want to do a brightness contrast adjustment layer. So I can go ahead and do that. You put ones over top, and it'll keep that original one completely alone. What I can do right away is I can actually just click auto, and it'll actually calculate what it thinks it needs to do to fix, for example, the brightness and contrast. And it just did it automatically. But I could go ahead and, of course, adjust it this way, you know, kind of whatever, add a little bit more here, whatever, add some brightness, whatever I need to do. This is not looking great, but then I can preview it on and off. Okay, so what's that going to look like? What did that do? Well, kind of washed it out a little bit too much here. So maybe I want to tone that back a little bit. Or kind of clicking back in the background, let's do it again. Let's right click and let's do a levels version. So levels version, which is kind of cool. Levels work good. All we got to do is basically we're going to try to pull this side in a little bit, pull that side down a little bit. That can kind of help a lot, and we can kind of see what that did. So that's actually really nice addition to what it did to the photo. We're definitely still seeing probably a little bit too much. You know, there's a lot of red kind of going on in here. So again, kind of come in here, right click again. Okay, let's try a different one. Let's try, like, you know, color balance or something like this, right? And we can kind of come in and maybe we can try to adjust the color balance. We can kind of cool it off or warm it up, like depending on kind of what you want to see. Like you can kind of get the tone like a little bit warmer in that spot, right? Hue and saturation, it's also a great one. So come in here again. Like again, every time I'm clicking on this background, make sure I'm selecting that one, and I'm coming in here and going hue and saturation. Hue and saturation right there. If I kind of pump the saturation, you can kind of see what it does. But what I could do, this is really crazy. So I'm doing this, I can adjust this. So I could say, you know what, for example, you know, I actually want to lower the saturation in a couple spots because I actually don't like, you know, there's a little bit too much color kind of going on in this area. I feel like the color's just popping a little too much, but I love the color that's happening in the sky. It's really beautiful. I love the color in the columns here. I think that's working out really, really well. So I can kind of actually bring the saturation down, and then I can grab a brush. So I grab my brush tool. So here's my brush tool here on the side. So I grab my brush tool, and anything I paint in my brush tool using white or black will actually affect what's happening. Kind of pump this up a little bit. Up in size. I'm just bring this up in size. There's keyboard shortcuts for this too, right? And then I can use a color black. So I'm going to switch my color out here on my brush to black. Okay. And I can actually color where this is. Actually, that was the opposite, eh? I totally wanted the opposite. Let's go up here. There we go. I wanted to keep this desaturated. So I want to desaturate this a bit, but I want to bring the saturation back in the sky. So I can kind of paint in this image kind of where I want that saturation, which is up here, right? Maybe in her bread a little bit there. That's kind of cool. right? But I think that worked a little bit better there. And then maybe in these columns, I love that color in the columns, kind of bring that back a little bit. And that works out pretty well, right? So you can kind of, as you can, I don't know if you can see that, how subtle that is when you're on your home screen, that if I were to really change this completely, you can see if I go all the way dark, look at that. See how I'm just literally painting color back into the photo, right? Exactly where I want the photo. I can bring it down in size a little bit, right? And kind of come in here and make sure that I get, you know, really close to exactly where I want that color, right? And then, you know, maybe I want this in color and this in color and this in color and maybe this in color. Whoops. And I missed a little bit. I got a little bit on our arm. So I'm just going to switch my color to white and paint with white. And white will actually, there we go. And that's how adjustment layers work. Really neat, right? You can see this weird shape kind of going on in my adjustment layer. And again, now I kind of make that more subtle. You can really see what that layer is doing, right? You can see where it's affecting the image is everything that is still in the white area where the black isn't. So if I want to change it, I want to change the hue or whatever, I could do some weird effects, right? Like, look at this kind of weird stuff you could do. You know what I mean? Make them look like these little kids look like Martians or something, you know, but the rest of the scene is fine, which is the rest of the scene is weird, but the water's off, right, too, right? But anyway, just reset that back to 0. But anyway, you can do that with any of the layers. So for example, the levels, right? So if I found that, like, you know, I want to pull out, there's some brown in the water, I want to pull that out, I can go ahead and do that with my color balance just specifically in the water. So I can actually adjust, for example, whatever I need to adjust to get it to the right color. So I can, you know, add a lot of blue, for example. I know this would be really weird, but say I wanted to add a lot of blue, I could then come in and be like, well, now it's added too much blue on them. So I'm going to go ahead and paint with my little tool here, and I'm going to draw on them again, right? And make sure that I get the blue off of them, because I don't want that blue for them specifically, right? As I kind of come in here. So again, this is one way you do it. You don't have to do it with the brush either. You could instead, look at that, how to paint the color. I don't know if you can see that okay at home, but kind of paint the color in here on our people in the scene. And as you can see now, the color of the water is more blue. The color of everything else is kind of more blue. This is all too blue, but you can also use like a marquee tool if you want to kind of draw it. But there's lots of things like that. So that's kind of a neat way to do it in order to adjust the colors and stuff. But as you're doing it, as you're drawing with your brush, if you use the left and right square brackets on your keyboard, it'll actually change the size of your brush. So if I'm coming in here and I'm like, yeah, this is too much here, I'm just gonna, you know, remove some of the blue up here, you know, that I added in this picture. Really just want that water, right, to kind of make sure that it's doing it. I don't mind this a little bit here. You know, these columns, I want to kind of, you know, paint back to a natural color. And this is what Photoshop's designed for. It's designed to do this kind of weird stuff where you can kind of come in here as a tool and really start editing things and really play around, right? So if you remember, black conceals and white reveals. That's what we really need to remember when we're using this tool. Is if anything I paint on in black using the black color for my brush, and I'm just switching a little tool here, just kind of switch the two palettes. It's almost like I have like a little color thing. I don't know, like a little board that holds all my colors that I have that I want to work with, and I get two colors on it, right? And I kind of switch quickly between the two of them, kind of switch back and forth. So, and actually D on the keyboard will change it to the secondary color, and I don't remember, it's called foreground color. I actually don't remember how to get back to the other one. E? No. D, A? I don't remember. Anyway, you can kind of switch quickly to the foreground color. I don't remember how to change it to the background color. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do some weird stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And what you can do is, what's neat is, again, you can preview, okay, what did it look like originally? That was the original photo. It's never changed. I've only ever added things on top of it. So if I come in here and I'm like, you know what, that color balance thing, that was weird. Like, I didn't like that. Or the hue saturation, you know, now that I've done everything else, I don't like that anymore. Or if I want to come in here and adjust the hue saturation again, I can. Like, it's its own layer. So I can do whatever I like in that layer to make it exactly the way I want in here, right? So you can kind of do that, which is cool. Other good ones definitely are like hue and saturation, vibrance, all that stuff is a good way to kind of, like, you know, make an image pop a little bit more. As you can see the kind of the difference here, not huge difference probably on your screens at home, but or to kind of do that if I want to bring a lot more color into a photo. we can kind of pick on some other photos here. But this is kind of cool. If I wanted something like, say I wanted to do a saturation layer, I come in here and I could do, where is it? Hue saturation, there it is. I don't know, I couldn't see that for a second. I come in here and grab my brush tool. Just be on the keyboard if you like, and come in here. And remember, white reveals, right? So if I wanted to say like, okay, I want to actually desaturate this image completely, except for the butterfly. So if I wanted to do something weird like that, kind of artsy, I can come in here and I can paint specifically, and even zoom in on this guy, kind of paint the color almost on it. And of course I'd be, I'd want to take my time and be a little bit more detailed than what I'm doing right now, but just as a really quick demonstration on how this works, you can really just paint the color in, create something pretty neat really quickly, right? Come in here and flip to my other color. Remove the color where I missed, you know what I mean? Kind of come in here where I missed. Probably don't even need to color that part of it, eh? Probably fine. Look at that. That's not bad. Not bad for something quick, right? Whatever. Again, you're going to want to be a little bit more detailed, but you start kind of creating some really cool things. So like Photoshop's a lot of fun to just go ahead and learn the tool and just play around, especially if you're into photography and stuff like that. Come in here, see what you can create, see what kind of cool stuff you can create, right? So how neat is that? And the original photo's there. It's still there. Nothing's changed. You even change the amount of saturation around it, right? Like even just kind of soften everything except and allow that to really pop. Go ahead and do that, right? So anyway, cool stuff. All right. Okay. Next, what if there's an issue in the photo? What if there's something weird going on in the photo? You want to remove it, right? So I know I have an image here that has something weird. Let's see. Actually, these are like little light posts. They're kind of distracting. They kind of distract me from like the line here of photo. There's also a guy down here that's just really weird. He's kind of photobombing this a little bit. This what would have been a really sweet photo. He's kind of photobombing it here. Let me go ahead and fix this in a couple of ways. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I click on that background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called the spot healing brush. So spot healing brush is perfect for for little small items you want to remove. And what you want to do is again, click on your background image, click on that, click the little new layer button, not the new adjustment layer, just new layer. It's going to create a layer directly over top. And then we're going to go ahead and click our spot healing brush tool. And we're going to make some changes. So I just got to find it because I can't remember where it is. This is it right here. It looks like a little Band-Aid. It's in here, spot healing brush tool. We're going to want to make sure in our spot healing brush tool that we're at about the right size. We can make this a little bit bigger. I want to make it a little bit bigger than that. So again, you can come up here and click on the size here, or you can just use your keyboard and do that. And we're going to want to be sure that the type is content aware. But it won't work right now unless I click sample all layers, because right now it would only be sampling this layer. There's nothing in this layer. So, and I don't want to edit the original photo. I want to make sure that I am not destructive to the original photo. I want to leave the original photo alone as much as possible. So I'm going to go sample all layers. It'll actually pull healing from all these layers, which is pretty cool. And all I'm going to do now is just go ahead and draw just over top. And look at that. Gone. Those are gone, right? Crazy. Look at that. They're gone, right? So again, super cool, quick tool. And I can come in here and I'm saying like, oh, these guys are really distractive too. So I'm going to come in here, make it a little smaller, and draw on top of those, draw there, draw there. This is totally would have been possible before. You would have had to marquee it. You use the clone tool, whatever. This is a new tool in Photoshop that allows you to just really quickly, like really quickly, go ahead and remove things. You can see the original image is still there. If I remove my spot, if I remove that layer, you can kind of see them pop back in. So you can kind of remove those weird things from a photo that maybe are distracting from the quality of the photo a little bit, using what's called the spot healing tool. Just cool. I'm going to turn my camera off. It died anyway. There we go. Is that pretty neat? Is that pretty cool? And I got a bunch of photos here we can actually play with.
Chris, I just have a question. So is there any circumstance where like you would use Lightroom over Photoshop? Like, what's kind of the difference?
Yeah,
between those two?
Lightroom is fantastic if you're trying to edit a whole bunch of photos and you're doing color correction and stuff, for sure. Like, those tools exist in Photoshop. You can do all that stuff with Photoshop. Lightroom is really Photoshop Lightroom, if you were to think about it that way, right? It's the, I'm just adjusting color, I'm just doing those quick changes to a whole bunch of photos to a big gallery. Photoshop is more like, I'm going to get in there and as a power tool and really, edit very specific details and things like that. But you can do a lot of stuff with Lightroom, though, especially Lightroom Classic is still really, really common as like the main one. I know I have another image. I feel like I have an image that I didn't bring in. There's an image that I'm missing. Which one is it? I don't know. It's like I got rid of it. I know I had an image that I'd like to use, but that's fine. It's really strange. But again, like coming in here and that spot healing brush can really do some stuff. Like, for example, I don't know if there was something like there's that one photo seems to work the best. Try to think of anything else like is messed up that would be good for editing. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. But let's go ahead and we'll try the spot healing brush just to get rid of this guy down here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than this guy and just go ahead and try to, make sure I get the right layer selected and just kind of come in and let's see how well it works when I go ahead and remove them. So, sometimes it doesn't do a great job. Like, it added this weird shape. I'm going to try it again. And this time be careful not to touch the side too much. Didn't do too bad that time. There's still some stuff going on here, as you can see. Try to decrease the size. Kind of come in here. Maybe I can fix it. It's not so bad. Pretty good. I mean, if someone was looking close, they'd be like, why is that blurry right there, right? Like, there's a sharp edge and then there isn't, right? But I mean, it did a pretty good job. So, but there's other tools that exist that we can try as well. So larger images that I want to remove, let's say, for example, I want to remove like this or something like that, or I want to try to, use a different way to remove them. I can go ahead and do something like the patch tool. So the patch tool is actually in here as well. It's in the same area as the spot healing brush. It's called the patch tool. And what I want to do when I do the patch tool is I want to make sure, again, content aware and sample all layers. Where's my patch tool? Actually, it's fine. You don't have to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go new layer. There we go. Content aware is turned on and sample all layers is on. So it's right under this is normal. We want content aware and sample all layers again, which is good. And how it works is you're actually drawing what's known as a marquee or like a selection around the object that you want to remove. So if I want to remove, for example, this guy down here, let's see if it does a better job. So I can kind of draw this marquee around him. Okay. So that's patch. So I don't want to do that. I actually want to, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So draw around the person. I don't use this tool too often because I find the heal brush tool works so well. Anyways, draw it around the person here. And then what we're going to do is, you see the weird icon? I don't know if it's hard to tell, but like the patch tool icon when I'm inside, when I'm outside, it's just like, go ahead and draw something. You know what I mean? But when you're inside, it's got this weird arrow. What you're actually going to do is you're going to click and drag from inside here to outside somewhere that you want to basically sample. So if I kind of want to sample like over here to try to extend it, you can try that. And what it'll do, it'll kind of basically pull everything from outside of that area. So again, if I kind of come in here and just zoomed out, I think it did a much better job than the other one, right? So as I kind of came in here, again, like with that patch tool, once I make that selection, all I got to do is go ahead and where do I want to sample from, right? I don't want it, that doesn't make sense. But, maybe I kind of come in here and kind of preview it, until it looks the way it should look, like maybe around there. And it's going to do the best its job it can, and to really try to sample it and do what I need to do. What I'm going to want to do at this point is deselect. Command D, Control D on the keyboard, or just literally, where does it? Select, deselect. There it is. right? So deselect that shape. So did a pretty good job that time. It didn't do perfect. Like there's a little bit of a line going on here, a little bit of a shape, so be a little bit more careful there. But I think it did okay, right? If I want to try to remove, something big like this cruise ship, we can kind of see how good of a job this tool is going to do there. Let's try that. We're going to go ahead and, grab our marquee tool here, patch tool here, and we're going to draw, I don't know why, but maybe the cruise ship company called you and said, hey, like, you can't have that. That can't be there. This is going to look really weird. It's going to duplicate that. Let's see what happens. Let's see what it does. Weird, right? That's kind of cool, though. Like, duplicated it, but it's kind of weird. But, I mean, it did a good job of removing the cruise ship. I mean, cruise ship's gone. Just duplicated what's down there. But then I could come in here and I could say it's, like the spot healing brush, for example, to remove that area. Increase my size here. Make sure I'm selecting the right color. That's awesome. It's not working so good. So as you can see, you are going to want to play around with the tools a little bit as you kind of come in. Okay. I think at this point it would probably make more sense to use the patch tool again in the right layer. And oops, I grabbed the wrong tool here. Patch tool, and do another selection of this area and grab something different. So whatever. You guys get the idea, though. You're going to want to spend a little bit of time to try to get that. So now we've removed this guy down here. We removed the cruise ship from the top right. So pretty cool. You can also do like, so that patch tool can do a few different things. You can kind of adjust the structure and you can adjust the color to try to see what you want to do. So the structure being at 4, for example, it's all the way from 1 to 7. It's going to go ahead and take texture from the copy area. That's what it's doing. It's taking the texture, and the color is going to take the color. So it depends what you're copying from. If it's really like down here, I want texture. I don't really want color, but up here maybe I want a little bit more color. Whatever it is I'm copying kind of from, that's how you can kind of change it. Okay. The other thing I might want to do is an image might be a little bit blurry, right? So if I kind of come in here and find an image, one of these images a little bit blurry. This one here, it can use a little bit of sharpening, I could see. So one of the easiest ways to go ahead and sharpen anything is literally just go to filter at the top, sharpen, and do what's called an unsharp mask. So go ahead and click that. And it's going to go ahead and preview it here, zoom out a bit, and I can kind of change my amount that I want to sharpen it by, the radius of the pixels, kind of zoom in, see what it's looking like, and kind of pick until I'm happy. I don't want to create too much noise or anything like that. Press OK. Now see, in this case, you can't really see much of a difference because it really didn't change much. But that's an unsharp mask, can kind of sometimes bring a little bit more clarity to an image. Try to find it. This one's a little pixelated. I could try that here. I can go File, Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. Bring it up. And you can kind of see, there we go. We're starting to bring in those details. You can see it's previewing in the background here. Bring in those details. If this is checked off, it's just because Photoshop thought your computer wasn't fast enough to preview it. Go ahead and try anyway. But there you go. That was a huge difference, as you can kind of see it kind of undo, redo, as how much it's brought in clarity into this image, right? If I kind of zoom in a bit, see the difference between the two, just kind of undo, redo. Maybe it's a little too much, but it depends what you want to do. The other thing you could do is, if I kind of undo that for a sec, is try what's known as Smart Sharpen. So I come up here, go Filter again, Sharpen, and do a Smart Sharpen, and allow a little bit more math to happen, in my photo. So I can kind of come in here and adjust, how much I want it sharpened or how little I want it sharpened. It's going to ask me what I should do with highlights and shadows, and how much I want things sharpened. See how it does a good job there, right? So it doesn't do a bad job. Not as much of a pronounced effect in the Smart Sharpen, but as you can see, you can kind of start playing around with that stuff. The other things that you might want to do, kind of little stuff, is smart filters. So you can actually you can take a whole bunch of layers and put them together into smart filters, which is kind of neat. So you can go, whatever, if you've got, what's one that where's that one that I have a bunch of layers? Like this one. We got a lot of stuff going on in this photo. It's really, it really needs a little bit more TLC, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we want to go ahead and select all these layers. So I'm just going to hold Shift on the keyboard and select everything into one here. and I'm going to combine them into one smart object. I'm going to go ahead and right click on them and go convert to smart object. It's going to put them all together in one. And then I'm going to go up to filter and convert for smart filters. Actually, I don't even need to in this case because of what they are. Filter, convert for smart filters. Perfect. There we go. Does it all at once. And then what's interesting about this is then I can double click into this and double click into this shape here. And it'll actually bring me into almost this like weird editing phase where I can go ahead and change. It doesn't work great. I didn't bring the original image in, so unfortunately it didn't work great in this case. But this would allow me therefore to edit things separately, so I can kind of edit what I'm doing separately. Let me show you a better example. Let's go ahead and do something interesting to one of these photos, like this one here. I can throw in maybe a text layer in the background or something like that. That looks really cool, like mountains. I got this little text layer here. It's way too small. Bring it up to, big size mountains. Mountinas. It's different than a mountain. It's a mountina. Okay. Bring it up even bigger. Okay, so say I wanted this like mountains text in the background or something. I don't know. And say I wanted to go ahead and I don't know, let's not waste too much time. Let's say I just have this beautiful text at the top or something like that. I can actually combine, I'm going to unlock this layer just for a sec. And I'm going to combine these two into a smart layer. So I can come up to filter, convert for smart filters. It's going to combine them into one. And it's kind of locked both of them together. So now if I wanted to go ahead and do an adjustment layer on top of this, like a hue saturation layer, it's actually going to adjust both of them. It's in white, so you can't really tell. But it's going to adjust both of them in this smart layer. It's going to adjust the smart layer at once. But if I want to double click into this, again, in this side of it, I can go ahead and still edit this. So this is still live. Whatever I've done in here is still live. So I can go ahead and say like, the mountain or something like that, or whatever, the sky. If I wanted to change this to something else, I can edit that. And when I'm done, just go ahead and close it, save it. And it'll now bring that back into my original, right, where I had the change happening over top of it. So it's kind of putting them together into the kind of these layers and stuff like that can kind of work out pretty good. Okay, that was mainly it for kind of like a crash course into Photoshop. Again, there's type tools, all that kind of stuff. The big thing that I find is probably one of the best ways to use this application is to really come in and say like, here's like a weird blemish in a photo. I'm going to come on in here and do my, spot healing brush. I love my spot healing brush. Go ahead and, make sure I add that new layer first. Make sure that content aware and sample layers is on. And I'm just going to click it away. Right, and that's gone. Right. So that is so awesome. And being able to say like, okay, like I want, to darken the sky, or I want to be able to edit this, or I want to be able to edit that. Like you can do all that all inside this application and change it. And all with keeping that original image intact, right? Which is really important. So awesome. Any questions about any of that? Is anybody learn anything? Anybody Photoshop users here today that learned anything here?
I took photography class in high school, but that's really the extent of my Photoshop. I did like 2 years of that, and we did some like clone stamping and like some fairly basic stuff and a few assignments in it. So like I feel like I'll get back into it pretty well, but like really remembering all the layers I think is going to be the hard part.
Yeah, for sure. The nice part about it is there's no requirement for you guys to be using Photoshop in any of your like, not necessarily, right? Like to really do anything sophisticated in Photoshop this semester. But if it is something that you do want to have more time in and do more stuff with, you have that opportunity. So each of the assignments coming up, you'll be able to, if you want to spend time getting assets done in Photoshop, you can. Absolutely, right? So it's kind of like if you want to, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. There's some extra reading and stuff like that I believe I put up on here, didn't I? Yeah. So how to use Photoshop. Let's make sure these links work, because Adobe changed everything. I love Adobe. Yeah, look at that. It doesn't work anymore. Oh, Adobe. Hold on a second. See if I can find it. I gotta move things around. Huh? How to use Photoshop as a photo editor. What was I doing? I'm gonna have to maybe spend some time and find you guys some better beginner photo editing course. Here we go. That would work out well. Selections, layer masking, photo comp, remove objects. Yeah, this is all good stuff. Yeah, this one's probably a good one. Spot healing brush stuff. Yeah, so this is all good stuff. All of these are links. Really, I'm just gonna Google all that. I just post this. It's gonna say how long it is. These are fantastic tutorials. They really are. You're definitely. This one I'll see if I can. The color one's really good, but I'm gonna put that there. Dun, 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 dun. Where are you? Copy. Link. URL. Oh, it did it. It fixed it. Good. How to make colors pop. Where was that? There it is. This is the photo. This is the video. I remember this one. This one was really good. You can see, actually, if we just kind of quickly look at this, what she does, she's going to use vibrance. She's going to do that kind of stuff. But watch this photo. Watch how much this comes to life in a second. She really plays. Look at the vibrance. Pulling that vibrance up. It's beautiful. Saturation changes. And you can see, kind of see where it's come at the end here if we kind of preview it. Like, look how good that looks in the end, right? And it did exactly what we're doing today. So you can see she was drawing in the hue saturation. She actually had 2 hue saturation layers and stuff like that, kind of doing different things a little bit. She had a vibrance layer that she had ended up turning off in the end. And she kind of previews between the two, like on and off, right? So really kind of cool. This is a great tutorial if you want to play around with color a lot. One of the cool parts of Photoshop is that, right? Is what you can kind of do with color. Which is awesome. So I also got this sheet up here. It's the resource Photoshop CC keyboard shortcuts. This is all the keyboard shortcuts for Windows and Mac. So they're all here. So anything you want to do while you're doing it, you're like, how do I do that again? Chris said there's a keyboard shortcut for this. They're all here. It's all here. It's a fantastic little cheat sheet and stuff like that. If you know something to print out or add to your notes, if you will. Which is good. Awesome. Okay. How's everybody doing? Anybody getting tired?
Hanging in there. I feel like every time I finish your class, my brain hurts because it's just so much information all at once. But it's good.
Sorry, guys. We condense a lot, right? Like, that's unfortunate. We
it's
almost
just
need more time.
It's like when your computer gets really hot because you're using it a lot. That's what my brain is doing by the end of the class.
I totally get that. Okay, so the rest of this is actually going to be pretty light. I think we should just, try to get through it because it's going to be pretty light. So what I want to do is I want to talk about our first video assignment, kind of switch gears a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and edit this video assignment. I got to edit the due date. I forgot to put the right due date on it. The TLP's got it. No, I never edited the dates on the TLP. Look at that. Look at this. What is going on? Today's January 12th. Oh, the week of January. So it's the week of January 10th, actually. Yeah, all these have to go back by 1 day. There we go. So this one will be due on the week of the fourth week, so the week of January 31st, which will actually work out to the Wednesday, February the 2nd. So your first assignment's going to be due then. It's going to be right before class. It's 12:30. Everything's good. Everything's available. Unlimited submissions are on. Yep, perfect. And make it available. Submit. All right. So, video assignment number 1. You will develop, record, and edit a vlog focused on a unique topic of your choice. So, for example, it could be how to make the perfect cup of coffee. There's this PDF. It's all about it. We're going to talk about that. You're then going to upload this to YouTube and send it to me. Let's go ahead and look at the PDF. It's got all the instructions. It's got examples. It's got everything. And it's got the wrong due date. Hold on a second. Let me edit this. I have the original file. Let me just... Last year, I had this great idea to put due dates for some reason in... where is it? Video assignment 1. Let's look at it here. Oh, yeah. Look, I already removed it. So I removed it, but I just didn't re-upload the file. That's great. That's fine. Let's go ahead. We'll look at it in here, and then I'll re-upload the file for you guys. Okay. Video assignment 1. You're going to develop, record, and edit a vlog focused on a unique topic of your choice. A vlog is essentially an individual's personal video series. If you've ever been to YouTube, you've seen vlogs before. You're going to select a niche topic. You're going to identify knowledge gaps and fill those gaps with story, interviews, and footage. You may use a combination of B-roll that you film using your smartphone or actually I'm going to put this or camera or DSLR/mirrorless, as well as free online footage and photos, as long as they are cleared for use. Here's a nice example right here of a coffee one. Can I go to the link? Go to link. Go to link. Go to the link. Okay, we're gonna have to save this out. Or wait, can I copy? Edit link. What? Edit link. What are you doing, Google? Copy link. Nope. Okay, hold on a second. Let's just download this as a PDF and edit it there. Isn't this fun? There we go. Ha! There we go. Okay, hit play. Here's an example.
I always start with a double espresso to kick my day off. This type of coffee is my favourite. It's rich, mellow, and before I can taste it, I can smell it. I know most people like various froth, steamed, or heated milk, but I consider myself a purist. I like nothing else other than the pure, roasted flavour. In my vlog series, I'll be exploring a different type of coffee every day.
All right, so a couple things we saw there in that video. That was a little less polished version, but we have a more polished version in a second here. More polished.
Hey guys, it's Alice again and welcome to another university related video. If you don't know, I'm uploading every single day this week, so I will leave the link to all the other videos down below. Make sure you go and check them out if you haven't already. So today's video is one I am very, very excited for, and this is university life hacks. These are things that I have used whilst at university and they have come in so handy, so I'm sure you will enjoy it. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So number 1 is actually one that will hopefully help you get up those early lectures. As you can see, I actually filmed this video rather late on in the day, but usually for a 9 AM lecture, I had to wake up at like 7 and it was such a mission. So all I did was put my phone in a cup and it would kind of amplify the alarm ringtone. So if you kind of sleep through your alarms a lot, this one's for you. It honestly helps you wake up and it makes you get out of bed. Number 2 is another simple one, and this is to take notes in different colors. Now,
okay, you guys get the idea. We don't have to watch the whole thing. And then here's the.
This guy took a package from my porch, and now
This is amazing. This is version 1.
This is a custom-built bait package that is recording him on 4 different cameras, and it's about to unleash a pound of the world's finest glitter, along with some other surprises. But to understand how we got to this point, first we need to rewind a bit. About 7 months ago, I noticed a package being reported as delivered, but it never arrived. So when I checked our security cameras...
Okay, so we don't have to watch that whole, that one's like 8 minutes. The idea anyways, if you've never seen those, first of all, if you've never seen Mark Roberts' Glitter Bomb, you gotta watch it. He just did another version of it just before Christmas, but he does it every year. He's at like version 4 or 5 now. Incredible. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, right. Oh, so all three of those videos have the same thing in common. It's a talking head video. Somebody's talking to the camera, vlog style, first person, and they all have that. They all have B-roll. They all have footage in the background, and it's all filmed. And you could do really everything that they're doing. I know. I love a squirrel video. So funny. Yeah, Fort Nuts, I think it's called. Anyway, as I digress. You can do all that stuff with your phone. You don't need to go out and buy a mirrorless. You don't need to do that kind of stuff. The camera that's in modern cell phones is incredible. The only thing that's going to suffer is audio, unfortunately. And audio is important. Audio is very important, but that's the only part that's going to suffer. But you can solve that problem, right? So one of the things that I did, one second, is I wanted to solve that problem and be cheap about it. Let's see if my camera is going to work. My camera's charging today. One second, I'm just going to turn. It's going to work. Hello, there it goes. So one of the things I did was I went out and bought, just on Amazon, a little lapel mic. Just a tiny little lapel mic with a cord. It's not wireless or anything. And these are like, you can get these for like $10. And, you know, just little, the other end of it is a, come on, Fuji. Continuous. There we go. See if that'll zoom in on it. You guys get the idea. It's a non-zooming. That's fine. I'm not a YouTuber. Anyway, it's a lapel mic with a little jack on it. And of course, I have a cell phone that does not have a headphone jack because it's an iPhone and Apple doesn't like headphone jacks. So Apple comes with a little adapter for Lightning. And I literally plug this into the bottom of my phone, right? And I open the, what's it called? The video recording app. Okay, really simple. Watch this. Open the audio recording app in here, which comes with the phone, but you can get your own, which is fine too. It's called Voice Memos, Voice Memos, right? It's a little Voice Memos app on here. Is it gonna like go ahead? Yeah, which is good. And I can literally put this lapel on or put this lapel on my subject that I want to record with, right? And tell them to throw this in their pocket, hit record, put it in their pocket, which is fine. And right at the beginning of the video, they clap, right? And what that does is when they clap right before they go to talk, is I get to see that when I go bring that into Premiere Pro, because now what I need to do is, because I'm recording my audio using a separate device, of course you need a second phone, I guess, for this, or you could record it all in one if you want to like have the cord kind of like off to the shot or something like that. But if you want to do it separately, like for example, I recorded the video with my mirrorless, and then I went ahead and it was my Fuji, but the Fuji again didn't have a great mic in it, so I recorded the audio using just my cell phone using voice memos. Going to record it. The clap at the beginning. The clap at the beginning is a really big spike. So in Premiere Pro, when I go ahead and bring it in for editing and I want to match up my audio and my video track, I get to see this huge spike, you know, at the same time that their hands clap. So I can actually use that as a reference point to match up my audio and video. And it works incredibly well. And, you know, without even being a professional at it, you can actually make it look really like believable in making sure that your audio and your video are on track, which is pretty awesome. So again, that's like a $7 to $15 solution. Is just go ahead and on Amazon, just buy yourself a cheap lapel mic. The audio quality is going to be so much better than having a mic right up against you. Is going to be so much better than anything else. You can do a little bit of cleanup in Premiere Pro in the audio. We can talk about that this semester, and it's going to make a really big difference for your videos, for sure. I'm not saying you need to go buy that. I'm just saying it's a quick trick in case you wanted to. But I'm not going to be upset if you guys don't have good audio quality this semester, because I totally understand. But if you're just recording with your video, with your camera, what you're going to want to do is we're going to go through some tricks and stuff like that on using your cell phone to record B-roll and to record all that kind of stuff. The different things you can do to basically get a better quality out of something just like a cell phone. But what you're going to want to do is if you don't have a separate mic or anything like that, the key is to get your camera close to your subject, right? So don't, have it really far away and zoom in. Bring it closer, bring the camera as close as possible to you, because that's your mic as well, right? So you're going to want to make sure your mic is closer and you're speaking towards it. And then that way you're going to get a better audio quality right away. just by doing that, right? So that's really important. If you don't have a separate mic team in order to use, bring the mic closer to the subject. It's one of the easier kind of things you can do, but to increase your, which makes sense, right? Because the further away your mic is, the higher mic volume is going to be, the more it's going to pick up other things in the scene. The closer the mic is to the person, the lower the volume can be, and the less it's going to pick up. These aren't, these are omnidirectional. They're not like, these are picking everything up, right? So they're really not going to, do a great job at isolating sounds in your environment and stuff versus something like a very directional mic. But I mean, it is what it is. But that definitely will help. Okay, so those are examples. What you're gonna do is pre-production phase is crucial to getting the project just right. So in a pre-production phase of video production, this is where we're gonna start planning, right? And this is what we talked about a little bit last semester on how it's important, but we didn't really dive into it. I just kind of said that, make yourself a shot list if you're, have some questions on how to do it. But what I want you to do is I actually have this treatment file here that you can download, and this will allow you to kind of come in. It actually is client and business information, but you're actually going to write, okay, like what's my concept statement for my video? Like I'm planning this out. What's my concept statement? What's my scene description? What am I going to do in each scene? What's my music and narration and transition and video effects? Like what kind of stuff am I going to use? And I'm going to use this before I shoot and before I edit, especially, obviously, if it's before you shoot, it's got to be before you edit. And this will help me, keep everything in track, right? Which is good. Excuse me, Adobe or Teams, get out of my way. There we go. Awesome. Oh, I closed that file. Did not mean to do that. There we go. Figure this out eventually. So you're gonna draft the narrative. Perfectly okay to write bullet points here. I'm not worried about the content as much. It's just your narrative. So this is bullet points of what you want to say, what kind of stuff you want to say. You don't have to go ahead and script your entire thing. That's not what I'm asking, but definitely have some planning points, some talking points about what you want to talk about in your video. You can edit out your ums and ahs, of course. So you can read bullet points, and if you have some ums and ahs because you're reading bullet points, you can edit that out. You can cut that out on the end if you want. But or you can just try to teach yourself not to say it, which is very difficult. Okay, production phase, that's about it. We don't really need to do too much. Like I don't need you to do storyboard or anything like that on this first assignment. You're gonna shoot video of yourself narrating the vlog's main points and story. You're gonna explore different shot types. I have a shot techniques PDF here that's gonna talk about a little bit of a worksheet in order to kind of plan out your shots. Whether you're going to use, wide shots, close-up shots, panning shots, point of view, that kind of stuff. You're definitely going to want to look at that and think about how you're planning your B-roll, how you're planning all that kind of stuff before you film it. I want you to shoot your B-roll. I want you to try some different shots. See kind of what works, what doesn't work. Like, does it really did you want to do some panning, whatever. And you're gonna at least 4 of the clips in the final video need to be shot by you. That's really important. So you need to film at least 4 of the clips, not including the vlog style video. You need to include an additional 4 of them. Okay, so that's production. That's all you're filming. And again, you're totally fine. Just shoot everything with this, right? And again, we're going to talk about some tips on how to make sure these usually do really well until they're low light environment. They're doing better because software is able to do a lot for low light. So if you have your iPhone 12s, iPhone 13s, I don't know, whatever Android phones are. I don't know what an Android phone is. I'm just kidding. But the newer phones are definitely doing a lot more in software to be able to fix color problems in low light, noise, things like that. Post-production phase is where you're going to edit. So you're going to take all that footage that you shot, your vlog style, your 4 B-rolls or more, any other B-roll you source online. You're going to have an opening title. You're going to have the footage of you. You're going to have B-roll throughout to tell the story, and you're going to have closing credits. You're going to have audio. You're going to have music. There needs to be music. There needs to be a balanced audio. We talked about that last semester. We can talk about it again this semester, but definitely balanced audio. You don't want the audio too loud. Some of you in your assignments last semester, that did happen. It was a little harder to hear the person talking because the music was a little too loud at that point. So you definitely want to, or the music was really, really loud and then it calmed down for the talking, but then the talking was quiet, right? So we don't want to, I don't know if you guys saw the movie Dune. Dune was really bad for this. This is a common movie thing now where the music is insane and then everybody talks really quiet. the rest of the movie. And and it's impactful, it's great, but we don't want to do that here necessarily. It's not as professional. It's more creative, but it's not as professional. Unless it's, I guess, part of your art direction that you want. But a lot of times it isn't. A lot of times it's just because people didn't know how to level the audio correctly. But if it is part of it, we can tell if it's the artistic direction, of course. Okay, you're gonna have cutaways from your narration with the sound and the narration heard under the cutaway. You're gonna have your B-roll. You're gonna have your person talking with the B-roll over top. This is much like we did last semester, but you're shooting everything. So it's much like the beer one, but you get to do everything. You get to shoot out all the B-roll. You get to shoot yourself talking. You get to create the topic and all that stuff. I definitely want color corrected footage, and I want it to match the mood of your video. Okay, grading on this, pretty simple. Pre-production treatment workshop is completed, is worth 5%. So that little treatment workshop, shots are well done and varied, 25% of the mark. So shooting it itself is 25%. And then the rest is basically editing. So your graphics, your audio, your editing, your creativity, and your length really make up the breadth of everything. And then making sure that it's on YouTube and ready to rock is 5%. We'll be watching them in class, but you don't have to present or anything. We'll just watch them in class. There's no marks for presenting them. Now, the target on this one is one within a minute of 3 minutes. That means between 2 and 4 minutes in length. That's the target. So if you want a little bit longer, you want to shoot around that 4 minutes, or you want to go a little shorter around that 2 minutes. As long as the content's there, the creativity's there, that's fine. If it's something shorter, or if it's something longer, but you want to be within that 3 minutes, within that minute of a 3 minute mark. And that'll be, if you miss that, you lose. It's 5% of the mark, but you lose that 5%. Okay. Any questions so far about that assignment? I'm going to go ahead and, while you think of questions, I'm just going to replace this PDF here with the right one.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
So if we go over, is that still losing marks? I just wanted to double check.
You have to be within the minute of the 3 minutes. You have to be between 2 and 4 minutes. If you're over or under 2 or 4 minutes, you'll lose 5%. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mark for removal. New file. Submit. There we go. Let's see if it got the right PDF up. Are we good now? Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So there's lots going on here. Lots to talk about. I think I have. Yeah, I have for next week. We're going to go in a little bit more about types of shots, camera angles, all that fun stuff. We're going to go through a lot of stuff there with lighting and filming tips and all that stuff. That's really all in week 2. But if you want to start playing around with your phone, one of the things, as I said, you can do is try some stuff out, right? So a lot of vloggers, like, you can hold the phone the whole time. That's an easy way to do it, of course. You can have a tripod or lean it up against something. That's fine too. I definitely expect you guys to shoot in landscape, not in portrait for this one. Shoot in landscape. Most of your B-roll you're going to be finding online is going to be that way anyway. If you do want to shoot in portrait, everything has to be done in portrait. So I don't want to see, you'll lose marks if like half of it's in landscape, half of it's in portrait. So half of it's wide, half of it's tall, half of it's Instagram or Reels, and half TikTok, half of it's, YouTube widescreen. It's got to be all the same, right? I suggest you guys doing it in landscape, but I'll leave the creative freedom up to you and how you want to do it, depending on your audience and stuff. But again, it's all got to be the same. So even your overlays, your animation, everything's got to be done that way. And I know YouTube's going to put it in it's going to put it in a widescreen box, but that's fine. As long as, again, no graphics are outside of that area. That's, you're designing it for an Instagram or TikTok or something like that. Don't use Instagram or TikTok to record it. That's not what I'm saying. But you're going to edit it with Premiere and all that stuff. But let's see. But yeah, the another couple things that you're going to want to do is definitely, if you're filming with your phone, what I need you to do is I need you to get on your phone and I need you to record a video and I need you to put it in Premiere Pro. Okay. So, this assignment dropped this week, but there's really nothing else to do from now until next week, except for playing around with your phone and stuff. What I need you to do, though, is this is your homework, is if you're filming with your phone, try it, film something, just whatever, a fake clip, get it on your computer, get it into Premiere Pro, and make sure you can edit it. Because I'll tell you right now, you're going to run into issues with file format compatibility issues by default on a lot of devices, and it won't work right away. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that your phone is in the right settings. So if you're on an iPhone, what you're going to do is in settings, assuming a lot of you guys have iPhones, where is the setting? Bum-ba-dum-bum. Oh, and if you want to take out devices from the library, I don't know if they're open right now. We can find that out. But if they are, they have those DSLRs that are really nice that you can use, that you guys can take out for free as a student. But you're gonna need your own like SD cards and whatever. So, but I mean, you can get an SD card pretty cheap if you don't have one. But they're basically a card that you can put in your camera. You're gonna watch your own. Where is recording settings? Okay, so I'm going to record video. There it is in camera. It's called camera. I don't know why I didn't think it was called camera. Camera. So on an iPhone, under save it. I'm going to stop recording my screen so it my video will be a little bigger. Is that focusing like at all? There it goes. Okay, so on an iPhone, what you're going to want to do is you want to click on Formats at the top. There we go. And there's two different formats that an iPhone can shoot in, and one is its own thing called, it's under high efficiency, and they call it the HEIF or HEVC format. The problem is it's going to be it's Apple's own format, so it's going to be better quality, it's better file size, whatever. Not necessarily better quality, but it's better file size. What I'm going to want to do instead is click on most compatible. Most compatible is going to actually film it in like H.264, things like that. And that is the format that you're going to want for Premiere Pro. So you're definitely going to want to do that first. It's going to say you can shoot, most compatible will always use, will shoot up to 4K at 60 FPS on this specific phone. 60 FPS, if you imagine, if you're going to create a 30 FPS video, or 24 frame per second video, you're more than high enough. There's definitely some issues with converting and stuff, but we don't have to go there. But record video, that's where you're going to be able to choose kind of what you want to film at. What I recommend is if your intent is to just film this at 1080p, is to just put it up as 1080p because you don't want to have to edit 4K, which is a lot more intensive to edit 4K like on a computer. It's a lot more work for your computer to be able to edit. Bring your footage in at 1080p. That's fine. If you want to bring it in 4K, if you get a powerhouse of a computer, bring it in 4K. You can always digitally zoom afterwards in Premiere Pro and not lose a lot of quality. So that's pretty cool. But I mean, at the end of the day, you can go ahead and shoot 1080p at 30 FPS or 60 FPS. You can kind of try that out, see what you want to do. You can shoot 4K at 24 FPS if you know it's going to be in 24 FPS at the end of the day. In Premiere Pro, you're setting everything to 24. You can shoot right from camera. Right from phone camera at the right size, right? So, and that's really it. Like it's those settings right there are going to make a big difference when you go ahead and you take the video from this phone, right? So if I shoot like 1080p at 30, or I'll do a 60, okay, and you can turn things like grid on if you got an iPhone. I don't know how well you guys can see that. I really can't tell. My preview image for my talking is so small. Move my camera. I'm probably really loud right now. Okay. But anyway, you can turn grid on. That'll put kind of grid lines up, which is really nice. That's probably about it. And then if I kind of jump back into my camera, there we go. So you can see automatically what it's done is it's gone ahead and put the grid lines up. So your rule of thirds, right? So things, subjects in those crosshairs is what you're thinking about here, and in video, right? And go ahead and just try it out. Try shooting it. You can shoot facing yourself as well. Usually the camera in the front's lower quality, but usually it's high enough quality anyway that you can shoot directly facing you, which is fine too. It's easier to hold it and frame it properly, especially for like a talking head kind of scenario. When you're shooting your B-roll, you're probably going to want to shoot it so you can watch it, right? And just keep in mind, like if you're shooting something shaky, shooting something that's not shaky, you want to kind of keep things similar, right? So if it's the whole thing is going to be a little bit shaky, in some shots are smooth and some shots aren't, kind of weird. So you definitely want to kind of figure what you want to do there creatively, and come up with that. So, but that's really in a nutshell, getting a lot of quality out of your camera. You can do it. You just got to be careful with a couple things. One is definitely the file format thing. Definitely want to make sure that it's most compatible. If you're coming from an iPhone, I have no idea what it's like from an Android. I don't have an Android phone. So if you do, you definitely want to YouTube that. There's going to be tons of YouTube videos on how to get audio or video off your Android phone. But that's definitely homework this week, is just try some shots around the house, try some audio, see what the audio quality is like, get close, get it far away, just do some sampling, kind of get used to your camera. And then I also want you guys to start thinking about what you're recording your video about, right? So start with that first part of that assignment, which is the that worksheet, that treatment worksheet, to really start planning what your video is going to be about. And if you have any ideas, questions about, hey Chris, I should do it, can I do this as a subject? Can I do that as a subject? Feel free to run it by me and shoot me a message. Other than that, pretty much I'm going to say yes, as long as it's appropriate. And you get the content there, right? So again, I'm assigning you guys with just playing around, make sure the camera's working, check YouTube for videos that you like, for some inspiration, and figure out what you want to shoot for. But that's it, guys. It's 3:20. It's the first week. The class is until 4:30. I'm hanging around for the next hour. Sorry, 4:20. I'm gonna hang out for the next hour. If you got any questions, I'm here. But other than that, you guys are free to rock and get started on this and start thinking about what you want to do. I'm gonna be a lot busier next week as we kind of go through and do a lot more stuff, right? So as we kind of get through more, how to film, how to Premiere Pro. I think even next week we actually start in InDesign. Yeah, we do. We start with InDesign next week too. So. I know we went through Photoshop pretty quickly today. That's really all we need to spend in Photoshop, though, is really just the idea of like, let's edit photos, let's make some quick little tweaks, and like that's all we really need to do with Photoshop for the semester. And other than that, we'll be spending most of our time in InDesign and Premiere Pro. My camera just died. It's kind of fun. Awesome. All right. Before we close it out, does anybody have any questions or anything they need clarity on? Yeah, go ahead, Sophia.
I'm just wondering, I'm not sure if you have any experience. Do you think that shooting on like a GoPro or like a portable camera like that, if the quality was good enough, would that have any compatibility issues with Premiere?
No, the GoPros are usually fine, right? Because they're going to shoot, because they're designed to get that video right off and into something like Premiere Pro. I would definitely try it out this week. The big thing you're going to get with something like a GoPro is just it's a little bit more like a fisheye lens, just because in action cams they're really meant to pick up a lot more of the scene. So you're definitely going to get that, and you're not. It's not always the greatest audio quality. It's usually a little bit sacrificed, again, because action camera, the audio is not a big deal for the most part. So I definitely keep those two things in mind. But totally, like the recording quality of something like GoPro is pretty high. So you're going to get nice footage. You're going to get nice footage. It's just going to be a bit fisheye. A lot of times you can adjust that. You can go into your camera, into your GoPro, and actually adjust kind of like, how fisheye it is.
Okay, yeah,
Right?
I have like an Osmo, not a GoPro, but I figure it's probably like the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, not a problem. All right. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? All good. Awesome. All right, everybody. But that's I don't even know what I just said. All right, everybody. There we go. That's pretty much it. I mean, again, we covered a lot. We covered, how color works on the web, on a monitor and on print. We covered image sizing and pixel density and CMYK and RGB and heel brush and spot brush, all that stuff. Color adjustments and stuff we can do in Photoshop. So we covered a lot of that stuff today. So there's a lot to absorb, a lot to think about. But we did record the video I'm gonna pause it now. Actually, stop recording. It's just almost 3 hours.